We're up and running. So I'll call to order and we'll stand for the pledge. And I've invited Pastor Rory to lead us in a word of prayer prior to this. If you'll come to the podium, Pastor Rory, and we'll have a word of prayer, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance after that. So.
Okay, great.
And then I have a call.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I want to thank this county for serving my family, church, and schools for over 30 years that we've lived here. I want to thank the county for honoring me and God to pray today. I'm glad the county respects all faiths and different opinions here. Today's politics are the most angry and divided I've ever seen since the Civil War. Jesus said, "A house divided will fall." I pray unity in essentials, liberty in non-essentials, and charity in all things. A number of different churches pray for your wisdom and the difficult decisions you have to make. I think of public servants are vulnerable to accusation and offense, so we pray the Holy Spirit will heal all wounds. I'm glad to see the Pledge of Allegiance here and in Gold Beach schools at a time when forces are trying to cancel our culture of patriotism and religious liberty. There's power in agreement. If you wish to agree with me in prayer, Lord, you said, first of all, pray for all those in authority that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and reverence. Lord, you said we can come boldly before your throne of grace to find help in time of need. Help, we are needy. God, we humbly ask your blessing, protection, and prosperity for Curry County. We pray your peace, purpose, and presence rule in these chambers in our county. May Curry County be known for honor, honesty, respect, truth, and wisdom and servanthood. We thank you for bringing Chris back healthy, wealthy, and wise. And JJ said he wanted a rabbi to come, but I do have a rabbi's prayer, JJ. The Lord make his face shine upon you. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his face upon you and give you peace. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Let's do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So it is good to have Chris back and have everybody up here that's supposed to be up here. We're going to...
All I have is...
Just got one little quick thing here.
I think Pastor Leguy, my good friend, said it very well. I have nothing to add to that. Can't wait to another time as far as the legality of us praying publicly. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So if we could do the amendment approval of the agenda, and right after that, prior to public comments, we're going to go to 7C because Diana Carpenter has a doctor's appointment, and we need to. It'll just be a quick thing. So look for a motion to approve or amend the agenda.
Mr. Chair. Actually, I only have one thing.
Okay.
And that's action items, discussion items 7B and D. Both are ARP matters that come before the board. I'd like to include those in one discussion, if we may, please.
Sure. That's easy. Chris?
I don't have anything.
And you guys have any problem with just getting Diana up here real quick? And
let's talk about that now.
Talk about 7C real quick. Diana, come on up. So Diana Carpenter.
So we approve.
Okay, yeah,
Make a motion
to approve. That's why you guys are here on my right and on my left. Got a motion to approve? Got a second from Chris?
Yes.
All in favor say yes?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
So Diana, we're going to go right to 7C. We thank you, and I think Diana's probably, you can stay there.
Okay.
Yeah, so if there's any questions. So 7C is purchase of 27 manhole structures. Purchase 57, what did I say? 27.
Still a lot, isn't it? It's a big number.
I don't have my glasses on, so 57. There it is. It's a little farther away. 66 GS structures for countywide storm drains. Diana Carpenter. And Diana Carpenter has worked for Curry County for
20 plus years.
20 plus years.
Thank you.
So is there any questions or comments from the board?
No, sir. None here, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, well, Diana, I was going to try to get a whole bunch of verbiage out of you, but it doesn't look like we're going to.
Thank you for being so kind.
You could give the public just a little detail if you
You'd like?
if you wouldn't mind.
Well, she's actually got to run because she's got a doctor's appointment, so.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay. Court, you second that
We'll call
one?
you on that. I'll second, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor say yes.
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 Motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Diana, and have a good doctor's appointment. Okay, we're back to public comments, and Mary Rowe is first. I got glasses. I got my cheaters.
So I've got a little problem. Diana Carpenter passed out my papers for you to
Okay.
the audience.
Oh,
So I've only got 3 sets left. Can't find the 4th set.
We'll survive.
have it. There you go. Is that it? Oh, wait. Got to straighten them out a little bit now. I have them all ready.
okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
So first of all, thank you for granting me 4 minutes, Chair Herzog. I'm Mary Rowe. First, prior to the last resolution declaring that we are in a state of emergency due to lack of housing expiring in August 2021, I propose that we extend that state of emergency. Later, Commissioner Boyce placed that on the agenda, and this Board of Commissioners, or BOC, agreed to extend the state of emergency due to a lack of housing. A new updated document was created, and Economic Development Coordinator Madison put fresh statistics on it that justify the need for the extension. And yet, I recently discovered that no such new document exists when I did a records request. Accordingly, I have given you a copy of the original resolution and of the response to my records request, and I am asking you to straighten this out by seeing to it that your consensus results in a document, a new resolution declaring that we are still in a state of emergency due to lack of housing. It has been a requirement of the Americans with Disabilities Act since 1995 that any jurisdiction with 50 or more employees have an ADA transitional plan and an ADA coordinator. The Northwest ADA Center can confirm this for you. You have worked with the ADA Center to receive 2 ADA trainings at my request, which took place. Council Pope, I asked you to bring our county into compliance at the February 2nd BOC general meeting, and you indicated your consent. And 2 months ago, you agreed to have this issue on a BOC agenda no later than August, verbally to me. You have not. I have supplied information from 2 counties to help. If work does not start on compliance of this federal law no later than the October 19th BOC meeting, I will file a complaint, and I have the complaint form already. Also, I gave you a list of Housing Committee members' terms from our county website, accessed by Committee Member Briggs, who copied it for me and supplied proof that he copied this from a county site with a time-stamped photo from his computer, texted to me, which I later texted to Mr. Pope's legal assistant. All of the Housing Committee's members' terms, including those whose terms had been expired for over 6 months, and even 2 members who had resigned. had been fraudulently shown as being extended to 2024. All that is, except for one committee member, me, whose term was not extended. Given that the BOC did not vote to reappoint these members, nor to appoint any new members at this time, this list is fraudulent. Lastly, you are considering proposals today for ARP funds without finishing your consideration of the first batch of ARP proposals and the recommendations made by the ARP committee. The Brookings Harbor Community Helpers Food Bank and Resource Center submitted a dual proposal during your initial round. They are a very high quality program providing services to all of Curry County. Please allocate something to them for a new, bigger building. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, real quick. Ms. Rowe, if you requested information that we have and Staff Jesuit could not find it, that will be a first. He did ask me to go back in my files, and I think I may have found what you want, which I will copy for you. I will forward to him, assuming it's the right information on emergency housing declarations and renewals, and also forward it to Council Pope.
I did my request as is legally required through Mr. Pope's assistant, and I also then asked JJ, and they both informed me that there was no extension, even though you did bring it before this board. You got consensus, but apparently it was never signed and entered into the system. Are you saying that you found it?
Okay, I'm gonna
try and find it and get it to the board. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your public comment. We're not gonna get into a discussion on that right now. Chris Havel, Joe Kinnick, and Justin Helberg. So they're here from the state parks and just gonna say hi, and Joe and I talked a little bit about McVeigh Park and
Have you signed that over yet, by the way?
I borrowed Joe's pen. I had to give it back, so I'm completely penless at the moment. Chair Herzog, Commissioners, my name is Chris Havel with the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. And yes, just in the area, just wanted to pop in to say hello, give you a very brief update on the two projects that we're working on with county staff at the moment. First, yes, Director Wendy has some information from us about McVeigh and opportunities for partnership there. And I understand she's brainstorming with the rest of county staff to see what's possible. And we're committed to be at the table to help with that. Whether it's something like a management agreement or a lease or something else, to start providing more service in that area of the county through an important park property we think is underused, not from the local community perspective, but just there's more potential there. And for public service that, we're both the county and the state trying to up our game a bit and provide more service through those properties. We think McVeigh is a good opportunity to do that. I did also want to discuss Flores Lake State Natural Area and the trail connection to Boyce Cove. That's the other project we're working on. We had a wonderful hike out at the property. We had some marvelous local guides.
You wore me out.
Did we? I've got photographic proof that you're in peak form, and it was a wonderful day out. What we're doing there is looking for opportunities to improve the connection between the county properties and the state properties there. So we'll be looking at the trail connections themselves, the wayfinding, the surfaces, the kinds of use that the trails provide, the kind of service that they provide, and all of the resource management that goes along with that, making sure that we're on top of invasive species and that we're providing the kind of recreation experience that people want and need from a well-integrated trail system. As we all know, they come to visit beautiful Curry County. They don't come to visit a state park or come to visit a county park. They want the experience of being here, and we can help provide that by working together behind the scenes to make sure that that's a well-coordinated, integrated experience. So our senior planner is doing some background work right now. We'll do some GPS mapping of the trail system so we really understand where everything is, and then turn our attention to developing a 5-year investment plan. That'll look at surfaces and wayfinding and connection opportunities and recreational use. both of the projects I just mentioned, the looking at opportunities for McVeigh and looking at Flores Lake, need to come with some public outreach so that we're well in sync with the communities and its needs. While I think many people think of state parks as being for like destination travelers, we take a more balanced view there. If it serves the community and it's powerful and it's a rich experience and it's well designed and well maintained, the benefit is you get the attention from people outside the area. But service locally first is always at the top of our mind. So we want to make sure that we're in lockstep with the people here in the community before we start making changes out of these parks. So I just wanted to drop off, say hello, let you know that we're working on those two things. So, it's going to take us some months or more to work through them and develop details. And as we have them, we'll work with county staff to bring those back to your attention.
Would
Very
you
good.
introduce your two associates?
Exactly right. So that was me wrapping up so that I can stop talking. I just wanted to also open the door here for our local park manager working out of the Humba Cape Blanco unit, Joe Kennick, and our district manager who manages the whole third of the South Coast, Justin Helberg. Joe, you want to come on up and say hello? Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, so my name's Joe Kennick. I'm the park manager for Cape Blanco Management Unit, which covers from Kissing Rock here in Gold Beach all the way up to Flores Lake at the county line. We've been about a year in this position and looking forward to a whole lot more partnership opportunities.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good
Joe.
to see you, Joe.
Good morning. I'm Justin Helberg. I'm the South Coast District Manager for Oregon State Parks. My district runs from essentially the south outflow of the Columbia River to the California border along the Oregon coast here. I just wanted to take a second this morning to introduce myself to everyone and thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning.
Likewise.
Thanks.
Justin, did you take Larry Becker's place or
Yes.
Nielsen's? Okay.
Yes. So I'm
Big shoes to fill.
Big shoes to fill for sure. So thank you.
Welcome.
Great to have you here. Thank you, Justin.
I'm going to take some liberty real quick to, we have a deputy that is, has a 5-year anniversary, so I'll invite Sheriff and Captain and Detective Garrett Shannon in, and he's looking really sharp today, and
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Chris, it's great to see you back.
Thank you, brother.
So today we're going to honor Garrett Shannon for his 5 years of continual service to the Curry County Sheriff's Office and the Curry County government. Garrett came to us from Gold Beach PD. He's become very proficient in his techniques on interviewing, his techniques on getting search warrants and getting them approved and served and everything come together. He's done a tremendous job with that. So much so that I have promoted him to detective here recently. So, but in the meantime, he's still working patrol, doing field training of several of our officers that just got out of the academy. Once they're good to go on the road, then he'll take his position as a detective, which he is already. But anyway, I'd like to recognize him for his 5 years of service and hopefully another 20 years.
all right.
Come on, gotta say it.
Thank you, Garrett.
Garrett's got to be in court at 9:30 this morning. That's what he needed.
I appreciate everybody. I got to get to this court.
Okay, all right.
Take care. Thank
Take
you.
care.
Good job,
Be safe.
bud. And I think maybe in the future, JJ, we'll move that award recognition stuff before public comments. That way, staff can keep, they'll know, they'll have they can keep on schedule and keep working. All right, next up is Beth Barker Hidalgo.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thanks for this time. I am here to speak in support for our new emergency manager and for the work that she's done to date already. She's so qualified for this position, and we're just thrilled to have her. And I also wanted to make you aware of the Curry County COAD. The COAD is a community organizations active in disaster. A year ago, the Curry Homeless Coalition was awarded a contract for public health emergency preparedness with the full focus on developing a COAD for Curry County. We've done that. We have an executive team. Monica participates in our COAD meetings. And now we are looking for a home for that, for the COAD. It was a huge mission drift for our organization to take this on. We recognize that. We got the process going to the point where OHA is happy with the status, but now it's time to pass the baton off to a more appropriate mission-oriented organization. We're having conversations with DeHotra Consulting to see if they have the capacity to absorb the COAD, and also with Monica Ward. We have 2 foundations right now that are emailing us almost weekly saying, where do we send a check for your COAD? So we have Roundhouse, which is, last year they distributed $11 million to nonprofit organizations in the state of Oregon. And we also have Humboldt Area Foundation that are wanting to support the COAD and the development of the COAD. So what is a COAD? A COAD typically consists of nonprofits, faith-based, and business community members. And what a COAD is intended for is to prepare the community. So encouraging CERT training, possibly developing other response capacity like Medical Reserve Corps, and to help our nonprofits be more, have greater capacity to accept incoming donations during a response to a disaster. If you read the after action report that was put out by Wild Rivers Community Foundation, Humboldt Area Foundation, and you can also talk to Summer Madison. When we were responding to Checo Bar Fire, we were saying, gosh, I wish we had a COAD. So this is in direct response to the after action report from the 2017 Checo Bar Fires that we develop a COAD for Curry County. And so it's really important. Pam Weinberger can stand here and tell you from Brookings Harbor Community Helpers that she had no capacity to take all the pallets of bottled water, food that were coming in from Walmart, grocery outlet, and such during the response to Checo Bar. She now has 2 20-foot shipping containers that were purchased with the funding that our organization received to develop the COAD. We were able to purchase materials and supplies, and so she now has greater capacity to store incoming donations if we were to have another event where people and or response resources are needing support in South County. So, and the second purpose for being up here this morning is that I'm making a request to you all. I believe maybe you've heard from Kathy Bernhardt from Curry Public Transit. Our treasurer has repeatedly on social media accused my husband of transporting homeless people to Curry County so that I have a job. As you all know, we have our own homegrown homeless people in Curry County. There's no need to import. We exist on a federal highway, and people are free to move about this country, and they do. And they love to come to the Pacific Northwest. I just want to set the record straight with the public and with you all that it's not happening, and I would really appreciate it if the treasurer would stop supporting and or fomenting these types of misinformation, disinformation towards our organization and towards my family in particular. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Valasis is next. Good morning, Ann. From 608 Oregon Street.
That's right. I don't even have to say that. Thank you, Commissioner Herzog. It's nice
Is that
to
in
see
case
you
you
all.
forgot her address?
Favorite North County person.
Good to see you back, Commissioner Pash. So I am here this morning as a resident of Port Orford to give voice and express my disappointment of to express the disappointment of fellow citizens in the town of the decision that you guys approved at your last meeting about the zoning amendments, and the process that left many people feeling excluded. I realize I appreciated many of the aspects of the changes that were put forth, and I appreciate that there's different ways to do things, and that you guys have to make difficult decisions as elected officials. But there are two items that I really think need further adjustment. So I just have to say them. I have to put that out there rather than not. And part of me, I don't want you guys to do something that's a bad idea. So this is what I'm here for. The first thing is, I think we need to put a cap on the vacation rentals in addition to the regulations you're proposing. I was really glad to hear from the county that might be considered in the future. So very much appreciate that. That was a concern widely expressed. It will be helpful. The second is a more urgent thing, and I haven't heard any response that's positive on this one, which is that I would ask you to please, please, please take our drinking water area out of this zoning change, because the goal of the zoning change is to add density, which is to address housing. But in our drinking water source area, which is the watershed that supplies our reservoir, it's just a bad idea to add more density in that area. It's not a huge area. It's a relatively small area, but there are some lots that are large parcels that are like 30 plus acres that if there was high density development, it would contribute to problems with our water system, our water, setup. We have a lot of problems with our water setup, you already know. But our community's been really working hard to try to solve them. They're big problems, and there's lots of different fixes. One of the problems, though, is sedimentation that goes into the water, and that causes lower reservoir capacity, higher water treatment costs. And so our watershed council and city have been trying to do all these things like acquire lands in the watershed, develop a forest management plan, and our other plans, like our master water plan for our city says, try to minimize new roads in this area because roads cause sedimentation. The DEQ water assessment for our source water assessment for our area says use tools like zoning to prevent, like the increase in density. So, what the change that the county's making, this is just like one part of the whole thing, but I think it's important for our community. It's not in alignment with all the things that our town is trying to do to protect its water. And so, I would just ask you if there's any way you could just take that out and just add a line. We've been told by DLCD that you could add a little line that just says this watershed source area is not included or is excluded from these changes. To me, it doesn't go against your goals of increasing housing out in the UGB. It just helps to protect. It just would be kind of one of those things of getting everybody into alignment. And it would have been great if we did this beforehand. But I just have to put that out there and would hope that you would consider that. So thank you very much for listening.
One quick question. If I may, Ann, on the take the Port Orford, pardon me?
Well,
I just want to make sure I understood something so she didn't have to come back. Never mind. I'll
we're
write you.
Happy to talk to you about it.
We're gonna, we can do that, and we're gonna be there. We got, I think all three of us got an invitation to come up in October or September to a meeting for your watershed issues. So
yeah,
thank you, Ann, for your.
It's important, and we need to address it. And it would be nice to address it before this change happens because it's going to be hard to address it afterwards. So that's why I've come down again because I think it's important for our community. Thank you.
It's on our
much.
calendar.
Thank
Former
you, Ann.
Commissioner Peg Reagan is next.
Thank you. Is this good?
That sounds good.
Okay. I'd like to address item 6D. I'd like to request that it be moved from the consent calendar to the regular agenda. As a former county commissioner, I know that when there is such a request, whatever the topic, the item is generally moved as requested. But in the event you won't move it, there are a few points I'd like to make. You changed the regular public comment process at the 8/17 public hearing and did not accept the usual forms of speaker information for those who wish to provide public comment. Did you not want an easy record of all in opposition? Of those giving, I can't even read my own writing. Of those giving public comment that day, 20 were opposed, 2 were ambiguous, and only 1 was in favor. Though you and staff evidently believe that it's only Port Orford city residents who spoke in opposition, and you all know I am not a Port Orford city resident, actually twice as many who live outside the city spoke in opposition, and the only one who spoke in favor evidently lives within the city limits. Then right before the first speaker, you cut everyone's time from the usual 3 minutes to 2 minutes. Did you really not want to hear what we had to say? You have heard from members of the public, though staff denied it, that all written public comments were not included in the record. Well, my written comments didn't make it in the record either, so I'm bringing another copy today. You'll recall the Flores Lake issue that was mentioned earlier, the exchange of county land with the state. That issue was considered for years before you took action. Public comment was accepted for years. But on this issue, which has significantly more impact on a greater number of Curry County residents and is infinitely more complex, you can't even give it enough time and public notice for us to know what's really going on. The so-called findings in your revised version are nothing more than a county wish list. Just because you say something doesn't make it so. Where is the evidence to back them up? Nothing in the record supports the claim that the city of Port Orford, and I'm quoting, acknowledges that the county's code changes are not subject, end quote, to the joint growth management plan. The only letter from the city in the record, dated 8/15/22, expresses the city's concerns and asks for more time. It expresses its desire to be more involved than the county allowed. And there is no evidence that STRs are paramount to increasing tourism. In fact, the only evidence of how the tourism industry feels about STRs states that the author of the letter, another quote, understands the problems that are likely to be made worse by the changes proposed. This pattern of not telling the truth is not new to the revised language. Staff told the city of Port Orford that the county was doing all this because DLCD urged the county to increase density. I have both a transcript of her statements and a recording, if you are interested. I left a message asking her to provide a copy of the letter or email or whatever she might have where DLCD made that request. She left a message for me saying she didn't know how to answer that, and I have that message on my phone if you want to hear it as well. However, DLCD said they did not ask the county to increase density, and I have a copy of that email if you want it. All this talk of contractors needing more density, more urbanization, and yet the planning department just dealt with a request for a variance not to have to pave a road and build sidewalks within the Gold Beach UGB in order to, and I'm quoting the county's language here, to, quote, allow the applicant to maintain a rural character in their development, end quote. I also have a letter from the Nasika Beach Ophir Water Board encouraging you to give them more time to, quote, understand how the changes will affect the district, and hoping you would provide that information to them before finalizing your decision. All along, we've seen a pattern of lies and misrepresentations, a strategy of hiding the county's intent and scope of your actions until it is too late for the public to understand and address them. I think we all will live to regret this, unless you are planning to make some money off of it personally, which I sincerely hope you are not planning to do. Thank you. So I'm going to walk over here and hand this in right now because stuff is not getting in the record.
Linda Tarr is next. Good morning, Linda.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thanks for allowing me to speak. I think Ann Veliz has covered a lot of my points very well, so I won't repeat them. But as the chair of the Port Orford Watershed Council, I have, in the last 3 years, really educated myself a lot about where our drinking water comes from and how our perilously small reservoir can be, we can take measures to optimize this, both the quality and the quantity of water, given we know that with climate change there will be more severe droughts, there will be more severe storms. In both of those conditions, it's best to keep the forest on the land in the watershed. It contributes to the drinking water supply. The invitation you just got from the Coalition of Oregon Land Trusts is recognizing that we've really been innovative in our work in Port Orford to understand that acquiring land in our watershed to be able to keep the forest on it is absolutely crucial. that DEQ recommends that in the updated water assessment. We followed their guidance. We found a bridge buyer. We're in the process of the city of Port Orford applying for some EPA funding to be able to purchase that piece of property that protects our reservoir, protects our water supply. There's another very important, crucial piece of land, 31 acres, has 2 creeks on it, steep slopes, absolutely crucial to our water supply lasting into the next 10, 20 years. The new zoning ordinance changes you have put into effect make it possible for that land to be developed with a density that is very deleterious to our water supply. Once you have granted a property right, it is not a simple or cheap fix to take it back. Mr. Herzog, when you made this decision, you said, oh, if this doesn't work out, we can change it. You can't put the forest back, and you can't take away property rights that you've granted that are very expensive. So I'm begging you, so that you will not regret this in 10 years, that you open up that record again and that you consider excluding the part of the UGB that is in the Port Orford's watershed from those density changes. If you haven't read the updated water assessment from DEQ and the city water master plan, and if you haven't toured our watershed, you should not be making these incredibly impactful changes to the zoning ordinances. And the statement that the planner said that, oh, she heard that Port Orford's watershed is well protected, that is not based on science that has come from the professionals. So you have a chance to not make a big mistake today. And I urge you to please take that opportunity.
Thanks, Linda.
Thank you.
Greg Thielen is next.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Greg Thielen. I'm a Port Orford resident and a member of the Port Orford Planning Commission, speaking as a citizen today. I'd like to speak to the proposed vacation rental ordinances on your calendar. Excuse me. I've for several months been involved in the process of developing rules to manage short-term vacation rentals in Port Orford. I've looked at the pros and cons and have studied how others regulate them. I believe your planning department has come up with many good rules with regard to occupancy limits, parking, tax collection, health and safety, etc. These will allow the county to require improvements to existing substandard short-term rentals and to increase revenues. This is a good beginning, but there's more to be done before you have a program that can maintain a proper balance between the needs of commerce and the need for livability in all parts of Curry County. As your proposed rules are written, there's no provision to limit either the maximum number of vacation rentals or their proximity to one another. As I understand, there's some interest within Curry County planning and the commissioners to revisit the idea of a cap in a few months. But I want you to know there are residential areas in the county that are right now vulnerable to a proliferation of short-term rentals that would permanently change their character. Time is of the essence with regard to adopting a cap and distance requirements between newly licensed short-term rentals. When I think about the folks who tell me they regularly get letters from corporations offering to turn their properties into cash-generating short-term rentals, I get a real sense of urgency. Many of these homes, especially those in relatively dense areas of the urban growth boundary like along Garrison Lake, would currently meet the proposed requirements of the new short-term rental rules. If so, they would be eligible for licensing within days or weeks. As I understand, under land use zoning laws, once a legal vacation rental has been established, as long as they follow the rules, that property can be a short-term rental business forever. Too many of these businesses in close proximity to one another spell death to livable residential neighborhoods. We've all heard horror stories of this happening. A woman from Brookings testified at the last Curry planning meeting, right here, about this happening to her neighborhood. Planners in other areas have used distance requirements between newly licensed short-term rentals to solve this problem. Coos Bay, after a lengthy process, recently adopted such a requirement, 300 feet in residential neighborhoods. Coos Bay also adopted a cap limiting the total number of short-term rentals in residential areas. I ask you, please begin the process for a cap and for distance requirements now. The possibility of long-term harm to our communities is too great to wait. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Greg. Skip Hunter is next. Unless you want to let your wife go first, it's up to you.
First, I'd like to follow the sentiment to Commissioner Pash. We're really happy to see you back.
Thank you, sir.
You were in my wife's and my prayers for weeks.
Thank you.
Proves the old adage, you can't keep a good Marine down. Also, I'd like to note that I'm a city planning commissioner for Brookings, and I'm not speaking for any of the organizations that I represent or am in. I'm speaking strictly about my own opinion. The culture in the annex has once again become a culture of toxic incivility, and this affects the public trust and it infects the community at large in unhealthy ways. As an old coach, one of the things that sometimes happens is referees do not happen to see a personal foul that's been committed, and they often see just the response to the personal foul. And that was a defensive measure, but the referee only sees the defensive measure, the pushback. So as the voters of Curry County, who are the referees in this analogy, many of us have missed that first foul, and we're only seeing the pushback. So here are some of the things that referees might not have seen. And again, in my opinion, Commissioner Boyce didn't start any of these fights that have been ongoing with Treasurer Barnes. Commissioner Boyce, to my knowledge, has never used uncivil aggressiveness. He has never cussed at anyone. He's never threatened anyone's job. He's never filed lawsuits, and he's never asked to censure any other public officials. On the other hand, Mr. Barnes has not displayed any interest in observing the tenets that are reflected in the OSHA's recommendations regarding bullying in the workplace and creating a hostile work environment, or NACO's resources for counties regarding civility in the public arena, or the county's Revive Civility Reformation, a proclamation, that was a 1-month period, or Robert's Rules of Orders. There's a quote on the NACO website that I'd like to give here. It says, "Civility is like a muscle that needs to be exercised far ahead of a contentious debate arising. It is necessary to pursue intentional strategies in order to create a community with the capacity to disagree constructively and that views diverse opinions as a valuable asset." So what I'm saying here is intentional strategies to promote civilities need to be developed in Curry County. We need to create a culture of hope. We need to recommit the Revive the Civility proclamation, not for a month, but for all of 2022 and into 2023. We need to develop and enforce a county social media policy to include personal use of social media in the public arena as part of that policy. We need to create or affect a code of ethics, a code of conduct for elected officials. We need to develop a human resources response with some teeth in it in response to workplace bullying and intimidation of volunteers. And we need to release people who are not able to develop the skill set or intent to observe civility, to create a culture of civility which is anchored in respect. So with that in mind, I think we have to respect ourselves before we're truly able to respect others. Using lawsuits and the threats of lawsuits is beyond the pale. And it's important to note that Mr. Barnes has threatened one of the most devout volunteers in Curry County, and that's my wife, Connie Hunter, whom you all know was a National Fellowship Award winner from the Associate of Vietnam Veterans in America. I suggest to you that in and of itself is cause enough for Mr. Barnes' resignation. There's no one that puts out more energy and more caring about this community than my wife. And it may very well be that Mr. Barnes has targeted her since 2019 when she was facilitating a letter from the Brookings City Council on solidarity with the county on behalf of the county's unanimously declared housing emergency. It seems to me that Mr. Barnes reminds me of a fan who's obsessed with cheering for his team while picking fights with the opponents. We're not his opponents. We're here because we care about this county. And the constant bullying that requires walking in lockstep with Mr. Barnes, who displays behaviors of a political ideologue, should not be manifested in this hollow place where the democracy still matters. My father survived Pearl Harbor, the Battle of Midway, and a military plane crash. I come from a long line of survivors. I believe Curry County will survive this too, but sometimes a team, if they're going to play well together, sometimes they have to cut the punter from the squad. Thank you.
Connie, you're next.
Sorry if I'm a little slow. I'm bouncing back from another bout with COVID. I'm Connie Hunter, and I'm a proud resident of Curry County. September is Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month, and recently attended a summit that was an international summit on suicide prevention. It was virtual, but a big takeaway for me was hope is a discipline. Hope slips away in increments in individuals, in communities, and in organizations. And I like to think the work that I do as a developer is the opposite of hopelessness and leaning in the direction of hope. In working with Dr. Michael Harry, U.S. Marine Corps captain during Vietnam, he was the co-architect of Six Sigma. We had a conversation about conflict of roles. You know, in every piece of the puzzle in Curry County, we're going to have conflicts of roles. It's how we navigate those conflicts of roles that are important, because there creates a measure of inefficiency in that. And I want to note something that's really exciting. As I mentioned, Six Sigma, at least one county staff is taking this training, this Six Sigma training, and I'm suggesting that this be a consideration in the future for others to take this training. When frustration builds in organizations, many times there is a misidentifying that it's people only, or that it's this person or that person or a group of people, although they can be contributors to the problem. But many times it's the organizational structure. It's the problem. So underlying problems that we face in missing pieces of planning, which indicates little maybe organizational structure is missing. I can tell you some of the big pieces that I've assessed, and I feel like are worth mentioning now to take some of the frustration out of the fact that the actual organization is underdeveloped and we're trying to shove a workload and situations into an underdeveloped organization. Doesn't mean everybody isn't trying their heart level's best, but sometimes you have to look at what's missing. And one of the pieces of the puzzle that's missing that I've advocated for a long time is the need to develop a council of governments. And how do you get to that? It's, if you don't have the administrative capacity at this organization, well, you need an associated nonprofit. And I talk about associated nonprofits a lot because I've worked with them. When I was at the Scottsdale Cultural Council, that was an associated nonprofit with the municipality, the city of Scottsdale. When I worked with the Phoenix Behavioral Health Foundation, we were an associated nonprofit with the largest community mental health center in the state of Arizona. And we could do development work. We could incubate things. We incubated Teen Lifeline, which is a suicide prevention hotline in the whole state of Arizona now. It became its own nonprofit. We incubated special programming and special convenings like developing a council of governments. But it takes a lot of the political pressure out of the process that needs to happen, and it gives the organizational administration capabilities to do that work that needs to be done. So those are some of my suggestions, and I also want to talk a little bit about volunteer recruitment. I worked with a man when I was at the Scottsdale Cultural Council. His name is John Lipp. You'll see he's a friend of mine on Facebook. John Lipp wrote the book called The Complete Idiot's Guide to Recruiting and Managing Volunteers. I'm going to get a couple of copies. The nice thing about a nonprofit, they can do that essential recruiting and management of volunteers, and maybe even in a hub that would provide volunteers where they're needed, when they're needed, and I'll be prepared for that. So those are just my suggestions. And I wanted to mention, I did put some things out here because it's Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month. This is the new Veterans Benefits Guide that the ODA sends out. Has lots of benefits and resources for housing and for homeless veterans. And then just wanted to second the emotion about civility. I included in a housing committee agenda. The last 2 pages are on revived civility. Thank you for tolerating me.
David Barnes is next.
Thank you for coming back to us and wearing white after Labor Day. I will too, you rebel.
Yeah, I'm not even eating Twizzlers.
You rebel.
Oh, that's a commercial. Yeah, I got you. Because I was going to say, I got some Twizzlers in my office, and you've probably been into them.
David Barnes, I'm County Treasurer. Just want to say thank you to Mr. Hunter for making up my mind about what I was going to say this morning. There was an incident that happened in this building almost 2 weeks ago now, where I attempted to engage Commissioner Herzog in a discussion about a decision that he made. Commissioner Herzog's response to me was that I'm lucky because he wants to reach out with his left hand and take me by the beard and punch me in the face with his right hand. Talk about civility, sir. How do you stand on that one? You know, it's completely uncalled for, sir.
I agree.
I've asked you before, if this was the first time it had happened, it would be one thing and it would be easily forgiven. But you yourself told me that you stood there one day and told Commissioner Boyce that you wanted to punch him. You've slammed doors around this building. You've yelled at staff around this building. You treat us like you treat people like garbage around this building. So we all deserve better. I deserve better. The staff deserves better. The people of this county deserve better. Your emotional instability and your response of threatening violence is completely unacceptable in a professional setting. This isn't a high school gymnasium. It's not some dive bar somewhere, sir. You threatened me with physical violence. Your last words were, I'm not going to do it today, but I may do it someday in the future. So I'm supposed to walk around the halls of this building now wondering whether if I open my mouth to you, that's going to be the time that you decide that you're going to swing at me. You know, that's not fair. That's just not fair, sir. I mean, it's
beneath all of us that we should have to deal with something like this. And respectfully, because of this and because of your continued pattern of just emotional outbursts, you either cry, scream, or threaten violence against people. I ask you, sir, please resign. Please step down from your seat. The county deserves someone better than you. We don't deserve this. None of us do. You know, you've sent a message loud and clear. You fired staff who disagrees with you. You've yelled at me, and you've threatened me. You know, how far is it going to go? How far does this go?
I apologize, but nope. This is public comment, Dave. When you're done, we're going to move on. I apologize.
No, you haven't apologized, sir.
Well, I will right now. So, but
if it was the first time, I would accept it, but I'm sorry, sir. It's a continuing pattern.
Point taken.
I cannot accept your apology, and I wish you, please, for all of our sakes, please resign.
Well, likewise.
Mr. Chair, so you don't want us to respond?
Nope. Let's not respond. Let's just move on because
my name was mentioned in one of the public comments.
Yeah.
And I just heard some things said that are absolutely ridiculous and unfair to this board.
That's the public's right to have their...
So I have to wait, Mr. Chair, to Commissioner comments?
Yep, you do. And we all do. So we're going to move on. We did the award
recognition. Do you agree with that, Commissioner Pash?
I do.
Thank you.
We're going to move to presentations, and...
I can do in 5 minutes, Mr. Chair.
Monica is here.
Was she first? Excuse me.
She's first.
Yeah. Monica is Cascadia.
4 minutes.
Cascadia
Is
Rising.
that enough time?
No.
Then let me do my 4 minutes.
What's your 4 minutes?
On the port?
The next one?
The Coast Guard?
Okay.
I just need the
fine.
The famous turquoise mouse. Can you, your arms are long. Can you reach that right there? Well, Mr. Chair, I didn't get to go on the tug yet and go out and see him dump gravel 3 miles off the coast, but just very proud to offer this quick presentation. It's a combined bit of information. 3 or 4 minutes. With the Coast Guard presence for safety of our fishermen, you can see here the number of boats that we have. The fishing has been improving a little bit. This is somewhat, not a minus low tide, but a pretty low tide. This is looking straight upriver. You're probably aware of from the Coast Guard facility, which is really in good shape. The meeting that I had with 5 Coast Guard people and 2 Army Corps of Engineer reps and 1 port official a month ago, the Coast Guard was under the impression that these 4 pilings were all bad shape. And they also had a concern that this washout area here, it give them the reason, and we listened very carefully, to go and leave their facility and their presence at the Port of Gold Beach. Problem is, when it's low tide, one of their boats draws 4.5 feet. And so that puts a restriction on safety when they can actually be available for... Wrong one, sorry. So this is their facility there, and they're basically leaving it vacant right now. It's in very good condition. We're just trying to figure out a way to help them move back. Obviously, their visibility is much better from this location. Now, this is looking straight upriver again. The facility here on the left side of the photo, basically 9 o'clock. You can't quite see the pilings here, but the depth of the water right here is not an issue now, not even at low tide for even one of their bigger boats, which usually they won't have that boat here. If they have a commercial boat or something go out in the ocean, they're going to call Brookings or they're going to call Bannon or North Bend. Yes?
So that little river bar or that gravel bar out there, is that going to go away?
Well, see, that wasn't part of the contract for the American Contracting Company, and that's a good question, and that was something we pushed pretty hard on, but the amount of environmental information that is required on this prior to permits being given is really quite the load.
Okay.
So
it was my understanding from the Corps of Engineers when I went to Washington that was a separate contract that the Coast Guard would have to apply for funding for that,
not us.
Not this contract.
Okay.
And they're saying that they don't have the money, and so we're trying to help them get those funds so that we can get them back over to this side of the bay. And I think that's really important.
So, Court, if you're going out right there and you have that gravel bar on your left and that big rock on the right, is that plenty deep right now?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes, but they're worried about sediment coming down and of course
Filling it in?
Yeah, we want all the high water, obviously, that we can get. This is a great site here. This was about, what was it? Not quite a week ago, maybe 8 days. So far, they've taken to date, they've taken a little over 200,000 cubic yards of fill out, and so it's just a great site. As I mentioned, fishing is improving there. You see that previous picture was taken from the dike. This dike was built when I was a junior in high school by Brandy Cold Iron and Shirley Laird, a Shirtel relative that had all their logging equipment, and they just did great things for that project, the breakwater. The reason this is an issue on the Coast Guard, you see two tugs pulling the barge out here. All the boats are right on the edge of the port entrance, and that's where the dangerous water is. So we actually, during this day, had no coverage if one of those boats capsizes. Plus the tugboats taking the gravel out, they're going to be doing some, they have to do a lot of horn honking, especially if the fishing is good. That might be, no, that's a different photo. So Greg Spear, I can't give him enough. He gets the credit for getting this here. It's been 3 years or more since we last had this facility dredged. And Bill McNair, who is the acting or interim port manager, it was just great to spend 2 hours with them this day and see the progress. Yeah, I think that's it. That's all I got.
Well, it's 10:01, and we have to take a break by law to give our employees a break, so we'll meet back here at 10:20, please.
10:15. We've got our presentation.
15's fine.
10:15's good. 10:15. All in favor? Get up and move.
Seen that green button come on. Miss Turner, good day to you. Can you hear us okay?
She's muted.
Yeah, you're on mute.
All right, you're on. Okay, welcome back. We are in presentations 5C, Curry Housing Planning Update. So,
thank you,
Boyce.
Mr. Chair. Progress. We have some distinguished guests here today, and thank you for virtualing in. Ms. Turner, we're going to miss you as you depart on the Coos Curry Housing Authority Executive Director position. You've done some terrific work. We have Beth Goodman from Eco Northwest. We have, who's been terrific to work with, Stephanie Hadley, who is the Coos Curry Regional Housing Coordinator. And Connie Hunter is in the office, and she is part of our Curry County Volunteer Program and has great background in housing issues, and especially for veterans. So I'm just going to kind of flip a coin here. Ms. Turner, let's have you go first. Appreciate very much you zooming in here, and we just have asked each member to give about a 5-minute presentation, 4 or 5 minutes, on progress for both Coos and Curry counties in terms of workforce housing in the Southwest Oregon region. Really appreciate you joining in today. Welcome.
Got to unmute yourself, ma'am. Your lips are moving, but we can't hear you. So if you can hear us, you got it.
You just muted our mic, Court. There you go. Ma'am, if you can hear us, please unmute your mic. Ms. Turner?
But don't ask us how to do it.
There you go. You got it.
There you go.
I don't use the go-to me very often.
That's all right.
Like Court said, I'm Martha Turner, and
Can we turn it up?
Can
we turn it up?
City.
All the way.
I think a massive echo. Does somebody else have their mics on?
Yeah, mute us now, Court. There you go.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm the executive director of the North Bend City and the Tewksbury Housing Authorities. By reference, we are two housing authorities that are separate entities in respect to HUD. However, we have administrative staff that operate as though we were one agency. The Tewksbury Housing Authority has been in business about 50 years, originated as the Tewks Housing Authority, and then expanded the jurisdiction out to Curry County. We have about 4 business types that we use to provide rental assistance to low-income households. Our biggest opportunity are the regular low-income housing vouchers that we use. We have 745 of those vouchers. I guess maybe I'll back up a second. We are 100% HUD funded. All of the funds are completely restricted to pay either directly into landlord hands as a pass-through from HUD, or with the administrative fees that the agency receives to pay for the administration of this program. So our regular voucher program is primarily based off of low income. We have 735 vouchers. We currently have about enough funding from HUD to only pay for about 635 of those vouchers. So we're short money to be able to get all of those vouchers funded and we have some special purpose vouchers. We have 90 vouchers that are for households that have at least one family member with a disability. Those are 100% funded, so we're able to use all of those vouchers for those respective families. We have 69 vouchers that are dedicated to veterans, and this is a partnership that the Housing Authority provides rental assistance and the VA provides Facebook for those veterans. So referrals do need to come through the VA for that to make sure that the veterans are eligible for the case management services through the VA. And then just over a year ago, we received 58 emergency housing vouchers, and those are for households that are currently homeless,
Anthony.
in a precarious situation, in a home or
Shut it off.
and those also require additional We also have an in-house employee that is doing housing search, and it's slow going.
You shut the fan off.
5 of those 58 vouchers filled with those households, but they just doing a great job of finding rentals for those households that have some years. I've been here just over 7 years, and over that 7-year period of time, we have increased our budget by $2.4 million with increased vouchers. We've acquired about 125 additional vouchers during my tenure here, and being able to grow our budget by high-performance standards and management of the organization. So those are additional funds that just roll back out into the community with the landlords. We're a small organization. We only have about 18 employees. There has been a new executive director hired. His name is Matthew Borderstrass, and he will start on October 17th. He comes with a great housing background from the Medford area, so eager to have him come and be on board. And we are continuing to expand the program, looking with some development opportunities. We've been in contact with Gold Beach and down in Brookings, as well as a large project that is being pursued up here in North Bend. So that's a very quick and nerdy overview. I don't know if we're looking for any questions now, or I will just pass it back to Court.
You know, we might come back to questions at the end. Doggone, we wish you the very best. We'll welcome your person that's taking your place, and we're just spend time in Curry County whenever you possibly can. Thank you. Beth, can you go next, please?
Court, I think you were asking for me to go ahead. Is that right?
Yes, please.
Court, I think you wanted me to share a presentation. If so, then I would need ability to screen share.
Do we hit this right here?
No. Here, give me the mouse. I know how to do it. You go,
We're going to accommodate you real quickly here.
Okay. So I'll just start a little bit before I go on to get the screen share going. So what we're working on is we're working on a regional housing strategy with both Cruz and Curry County together. And our first set of tasks is really about identifying the barriers for development. And that's where we are at this point. We're in the process of setting up a number of meetings with stakeholders to get more information about each of the barriers that I'll talk about in a moment or two. But for right now, we're dividing barriers between barriers to accessing affordable housing or housing in general. And so those barriers, of course, include the fact that it's difficult for people to afford housing, as was just being talked about.
Give me the mouse real
in
quick.
some communities, the prevalence of short-term rentals, and then the issues related to commuting. And so is there sufficient housing near where you've got employment centers? So that's some information that we're gathering, and sorry about the trucks in the background, bringing more information into this about. And then barriers to housing development. So costs of development of housing, how that's different on the South Coast. Looking at the market dynamics, and that really ends up being about more the intersection of incomes, which are comparatively low, with housing costs, building housing costs, which are high
forgive me.
Anywhere across Oregon, but are higher at the South Coast, we think.
You're muted.
And so what the barriers are there. Lack of land for housing development, and so that's land with infrastructure, so needing funding options for infrastructure development and investments. Those two pieces go together. And then need for more public-private partnership tools, so tools that support feasibility for developing housing. So what we're trying to do is look at these barriers in the context of how will they connect to solutions. So trying to identify barriers for which there are plausibly solutions that may be countywide or both countywide, and it may also, a lot of the solutions are probably going to be city specific.
Beth, hang on. Hang on.
Sorry.
Forgive me for interrupting. We're still trying to figure out why we don't have our screen share. So let's just pause for hopefully 30 seconds. We have the expert here to help out. And do you like that? And she has a black screen that's on the reader board there.
You can close that. We can see your screen box that you opened.
Does she need to screen share?
Yeah,
Yes.
she wants to
on?
screen share
Okay.
something. So you can close that other box.
Got it. So
I couldn't get it to close.
What you'd want to do is, do you see 3 buttons at the bottom of the screen?
Yeah, one of them is screen, and it's grayed out with a line through it.
Yep. So press that one. And then
Nothing happens when I press it. It's grayed out.
okay. You may not have the ability to screen share currently, but let's see.
Hey.
I'll be glad when the new system comes in.
Not quite used to working with these either, unfortunately.
Well, Court, did you give folks the copy of the little 4-slide presentation?
Yeah, and that's on a thumb drive. So that's the barriers. You just saw it there. Go back to that screen, the yellow screen.
It may well be it's on the thumb drive there. You guys can put it up on the screen, and I can walk through it.
It's right at 3 o'clock. It's the
It's
blue
probably
one.
right at the top, called Barriers, the third one down on the right.
Yeah, she can see it. So you got to get back to that screen.
She should be able to see the screen.
Yeah, but she can't click the screen from where she is.
Okay.
It's look on your right-hand side. You've got 2 PDFs, and then you've got a PowerPoint. called Barrier Summary. If you could open that.
You got real close that time.
Trying to expand it.
Do you see which one it is? See the two diagonal arrows? It's the second one right below it, dark blue.
Dark blue.
Go 2 down. You're going to, yeah, no, slow down. Go 1 up now.
Okay.
That's the one we want right there.
Got it.
But I don't know if you can click it unless it's full screen.
No, unfortunately here. I'll just move that over.
We're gaining Miss Goodman.
Yep. Move that over. The barrier summary. Is that the one?
That's the one.
Okay.
That's the one.
I just had to move the application over. All right. Here you go.
Can you get rid of that?
And if you could go to the next slide.
Sure. You can find a way to
Just roll that down.
and then I'll collapse this as well. There you go. So she's still able to.
She wants to go to the next slide now.
Start this.
I can see your screen. I don't know if you guys can see your screen.
Yep.
So
We finally got there.
Yep. As you press enter, you should be able to switch slides.
Okay, we're on the second screen. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerome.
Perfect. And I don't think I can switch slides, so somebody else will have to do that for me.
Okay, so there's 2 categories of housing barriers identified.
So, sorry, I was just closing my noisy window. So these are the barriers that I was just talking about that we're working with, and we'll be fleshing out further. If you could go to the next slide. So looking at affordability, just at the highest level, these are really high-level summaries. 36% of Coos County households and 41% of Curry County households can't afford average asking rents. When we look at the information about how much rental housing you have in the county and the kinds of rental housing, neither county has a whole lot of rental housing. There's a lot more for ownership. And most of the rental housing, if I'm remembering correctly, is single-family detached. So you don't have a lot of, say, multifamily rental housing. Is that a barrier? It kind of depends. I would say it's a barrier to having more housing that's affordable for people who need to rent housing and who can't afford to own it. And so you want this multifamily housing in your cities. And multifamily housing can range from things like duplexes and quadplexes on up to apartment buildings that are, say, garden walk-ups or 2 or 3 floor apartment buildings. So we're not necessarily talking about things that are humongous. That would not be appropriate.
And I like the next category. Continue, please.
Short-term rental.
Yeah.
So, short-term rentals in some communities are going to be an issue. We have a little bit of information about them from some communities, for all the communities, but it's not as much information as you might want. But we know that in your communities that are along the coast, you have more short-term rentals than you do, say, the communities that are inland and smaller. That's not really surprising. So you might choose regulations that are either county-wide for the unincorporated areas and or city-specific regulations about short-term rentals. I would caution you about, just outright banning short-term rentals without thinking a lot about the effect of that on your tourist economy, because tourism is, of course, an important part of your economy. So you might look at regulating short-term rentals and permitting them and seeing where you've got growing numbers of them and choosing how to regulate them in those ways. Do you put a cap on them? Do you regulate them at all? Those are all questions that I think are certainly up for discussion.
Beth, I'm going to interrupt just for a second there. I'm going to send you and your staff some information on coastal comparisons. It was done by a gentleman in Port Orford that is very good information. It's actually in 2 parts. One was just updated about 30 days ago. So I think that would be good for your organization, and you may have some additional comments about that down the road. So I'll make sure that you get that. Thank you. So housing near employment centers?
Yeah, so this really goes to the location of housing. Do you have enough housing near your employment centers, and how is this affecting commuting? And of course, commuting is important for a number of different reasons, but when you just look at it simply from a county perspective, all these county roads that are commuted on, that's a cost to the county over time. So we'll bring in some information about that, and that points to where you may want more housing, may want to focus as a region at looking at housing development. And of course, places like Coos Bay, North Bend, Brookings, to some extent Gold Beach, those kind of areas, your larger cities where you have more employment are likely going to be where you're looking at some concentration of need for housing.
Our county council is looking with great interest. He still has to drive from Bandon 4 or 5 days a week, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, Bandon's going to be a hard one because of housing costs in Bandon, certainly. Sure. And getting affordable housing in a community like Bandon is going to be challenging, we'll just say.
Thank you. And just went to the next slide here.
So looking at housing cost of production, so how is, labor materials different based on your location? And of course the kinds of housing you can have in the more coastal parts of the county end up being different because of climate. So wind, for instance, that kind of thing, salt water. So we'll be looking at that some and how that cost is different than it is in other parts of Oregon. Really connected with that is the market dynamics, looking at market feasibility and how it's affected by the development costs. So in other words, to build housing that is financially feasible for development, what rents do you have to charge? We're not doing a pro forma analysis on this. We'll be talking to developers to understand what they're seeing from their pro forma analysis. And the answer is going to be that the rents have to be higher than what is affordable in the county. And then the question is, what are the things that the county and the cities can do to support that kind of development? And so that gets to the last two. Land for housing development. This is something we're going to have to look at what the cities are doing in their housing needs analysis, because a number of the cities have done them recently or in the process of doing them. And so do the cities within their urban growth boundaries have enough land to accommodate development? And are there particular barriers to development in some of those areas? We'll be asking the cities for that information. And I'm sure that there are barriers that involve constraints, like physical constraints, like steep slopes, for instance, and that involve infrastructure constraints. And so that comes to the next piece, the funding for infrastructure and housing investments. I think this is going to be particularly difficult in these two counties because there's not much in the way of local funding. So for instance, suggesting issuing a general obligation bond, I would imagine would get me banned from Curry County forever. So, but that's one source of funding that cities are using for infrastructure and housing investments. So looking at what those options are. And then your public-private partnership tools. So things like, can you use tax exemptions in some of the cities very selectively to support affordable housing development? There's a number of different options. So that's where we're going. None of it's easy. If it was easy, it would in fact be done.
It takes some time, and it is not uncommon to most of the western United States. So Curry County and our rural area, we're just going to keep pushing and plotting and encouraging developers. And to hear you reference the barriers and spend a lot of time on that, that's a logical approach, and we really appreciate that. We're all learning more, and you have teamed up with some really good people, and this grant work that you're doing for us, I want the people that I'm responsible for to know that this hasn't cost the county anything, but it is a good part of the planning process, which will encourage development and land use issues, everything that has to do with getting workforce housing. Thank you very much, Beth. Ms. Hadley, you are next. So where do I go out here?
Perfect. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hang on one moment.
Down on the bottom court.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Hadley. I am a regional housing coordinator for our area. My territory is from Reedsport down to the border. And so this morning I would just like to give a brief update on some regional efforts that tie into Curry County. It will also touch on what Beth Goodman was just speaking about, as well as what we're looking at for the future down in Curry. First of all, from my perspective and from a regional perspective, we are exploring a community land trust model. We have engaged in conversations with Proud Ground. They are out of Portland. They are the largest community land trust holder in the country, actually, which is really great that it's in our backyard. This allows people that maybe wouldn't be able to purchase homes. It offers them permanent, affordable housing ownership. And so there are a couple of paths that we can take with that the Regional Steering Committee is exploring right now. And we also will be discussing and pulling in another organization to explore this further. This is a new topic for us. This will allow us to offer more workforce housing options for our area. The first city that we've kind of targeted to explore this with is Bandon. And since this came up in Beth's presentation, I'll touch on that briefly. There are 3 parcels identified in Bandon. I'm going to speak about 2 of them today. There's a 17-acre parcel that was purchased by Mike Kaiser from Bandon Dunes, and this is going to be donated for workforce housing. Not specific to Bandon Dunes, this is for the community. So a community land trust model would be ideal there. Working very closely with Marie Simons to explore that with that group. Across the street from that parcel and a little bit north, there is an 11.5-acre parcel that's next to the ball fields, the community center, and the school district and city owns that, and Dan Chandler is starting to explore that option for family housing, workforce housing, affordable housing opportunities. So those are some pretty large parcels that we get to work with. Wetland mitigation is currently happening with the 17-acre parcel, and they're waiting for results from that project in order to move forward on the next steps. A little bit farther north, I'm going to touch on Northwest Housing Alternatives projects and then explain how that will affect Curry County. So there are 2 projects that Northwest Housing Alternatives is working on in Coos Bay currently. I mentioned Northwest Housing Alternatives the last time I spoke to the commission, and just to recap, they provide affordable housing options for families, seniors, and folks with special needs across Oregon. They are working on the Gloria Day Church project up there. And for those that don't know, Gloria Day donated 2-point-something acres of land for an affordable housing project. They also are working on the Inglewood School project. And so they are an affordable housing provider, developer that we have identified that is willing to work in our area. With that being said, they've gone above and beyond for our region. Currently, we are waiting to hear back on a technical assistance grant that they have submitted on behalf of our region. That person would be a paid position that would be funded through them, but they would be a resource to our region. So if there's a parcel of land that's identified, if there's a project idea, we can have someone get in there and start to go through the permitting process, identify the needs of the parcel in order to develop. And so that will be a huge success for our area. And they've volunteered to do that because we identified that need early on. In addition, Commissioner Boyce has provided us with a list of properties that Curry Real Property Inventory List. I've shared that with my contact at Northwest Housing Alternatives, and as a favor to us, they're starting to go through that list one by one, property by property, to see and identify parcels that we could potentially start to move forward with and explore for affordable housing projects in Curry County. There are 2 workforce housing projects that I am at the table right now in Curry County discussing. Unfortunately, I can't
speak to those at the moment, but we are pulling together partnerships and trying to explore and trying to make things pencil, and I'm hoping to be able to speak more about that in the future and give a more solid update there. But there are a couple of specific workforce housing opportunities that we've received from local employment folks. In addition to that, Wild Rivers Coast Alliance has granted us with a grant for some money to hold a pizza pub night in Gold Beach. I'm working with Chief of Police Jordan White on this. The goal and the intention behind this meeting is to invite folks from the construction workforce and to see if we can find efficiencies, see what the needs are, and also start to talk about the next wave of construction workforce for the area. Because while, yes, we need to develop, we also need the people to work on those projects. And so we want to make sure that we're starting to have that conversation. Wild Rivers Coast Alliance has been great, and they stepped up. And so we can kind of treat the workforce, give them a major appreciation night as well, and start to open up those discussions with those folks. And like I said, Jordan has been great to work on that as well. The other thing I would just mention is that I last week was invited to a listening series with Representative Boomer Wright on the topic of the unhoused and homelessness in our area. This was specific to Coos County, but I really am hoping that we can start to look at this from a regional perspective as we identify needs of folks throughout the region and what that looks like. And so I just wanted to offer that up as a conversation that's starting to happen with Boomer Wright as he has come to the table and offered support in this area. And I'm happy to share information offline as it unfolds for anyone that's interested. The other thing I would mention, if everyone can just mark their calendar, the Housing Summit will be October 28th. It's a Friday. It will be at the casino up in Coos Bay, and more information will be hitting your inboxes shortly, but I would ask that you save the date for that as well. And that's it. Thank you, Commissioners.
Ms. Hadley, thank you very much. I want to give the credit on the Real Property Task Force effort to County Council staff for Bia Lee. My goodness, when it sinks in that we have 800 pieces of property, if even 1% were available, we could make a gigantic difference. Granted, a lot of those properties are odd-shaped and not developable land, but it's kind of started a new spirit around here that there is some things hopefully that we can actually get done. And thank you for referencing that, and we're glad to have you and Connie Hunter and Beth and Coos Curry Housing Authority all involved in this. So thank you again. Connie, didn't mean to ask you to go last, but we've got about 5 minutes, and very much appreciate, needless to say, your long-term effort, experience, and background, and the way you've worked with Stephanie. You two are a tremendous team. You have a lot of great knowledge. Welcome.
Thank you. And thank you, Chair Herzog, and all the commissioners and everybody here today. And boy, how can you be a home run hitter with that team? Oh my gosh, what a hard act to follow all the way around. Thank you all for your presentations. But I'm here today to talk not as a Coos Curry Housing Authority Commissioner, although I appreciate the recognition, but as a member of multiple community care organization work groups, including Housing Resilience, and recognizing housing is a concern in suicide prevention, and you know about our works in suicide prevention. Some of the ongoing work on the to-do list that was generated on behalf of the Curry County Housing Committee that wasn't getting done was really kind of keeping track of some of our successes. But in your hands, you probably have a query. Did that get handed to you?
Yes.
And as you're talking, Stephanie's making her report, we don't have a piece to actually capture all those great reports into an understanding of what we're actually doing on behalf of housing. So this query is to kind of capture that information in one location. And starting and putting that together is really important because there were a number of things that were mentioned. And if you flip to the very back of the query, it's going to show you notable funding, highlights, grant awards, and other grant info. Some of the things that Stephanie reported today would go under that column. We had information that was shared with us by City Manager Pro Tem Gary Milliman in his work report, weekly report at the City of Brookings, and that also in that category explains the funding that the City of Brookings was able to get on behalf of the Rio Tinto and Rio Tinto U.S. Borax property, which amounts to over $30 million combination of loans and grants. And I'm not going to go into the details of that, but I can tell you it was probably 10 years ago where we were locating the grant itself, 8 years when they actually started doing that work. And I know that was left in capable hands when Gary retired, City Manager Milliman retired, but when he came back on as pro tem, they had to get that and another grant out, and they did amazing work and got it done so that they presented that 12 days in advance. And that's a success story, and we don't always hear those success stories, and we don't
Connie,
always...
thank you for your work on that 10 years ago, and that's how long it took, but I think it was $3 million that they got a grant, and then a loan of $20 million for...
Yes, and the details are there.
Thank you.
In that reading, and
They worked really hard on that.
Yes, it's you know what, against all odds, it got done. So this would be a tool. This type of tool would allow housing community partners and stakeholders to share information and for us to kind of also see what we've catalyzed and places where we might do work again. For example, the conversation about having that inventory of county-owned properties. I was in a meeting with Gary Milliman and Julie Schmelzer had convened it. That 40-acre piece of property that's down in Pistol River. It's been talked about for a long time. What do you do with it? It can't do this, you can't do that because of land use issues. A suggestion came forward that was very simple. And it said, can we sell or trade that property? So those kinds of things in that evaluation I know will come down, and I'm grateful to see that because those are the kinds of things that can take that inventory and make that inventory into a resource beyond just that list. But this, the prompt for this query is with regards to housing, there has been major progress to report, which suggests that we have fewer mountains to move. And one of the things that I came away with after attending the Meyer Memorial Trust Housing Justice Summit and working and meeting the chair of the housing, I'm gonna mess up the name here, the Housing Stability Council at the state level, Chair Claire Hall was there, and I learned a lot. She's also a commissioner.
Lincoln County.
At Lincoln County. But some of the work that I've been doing is attending those state level meetings, and I can see what they're doing and how they're trying to break things up, and they're helping to identify their missing layers of planning within their organization. So what we know is this new funding is coming, and there's a lot to be built, and that we're actually on the front end and have gone this far with the resources that we don't have is actually pretty amazing, and this query will help capture that.
Connie, thank you. My goodness. In the Humboldt Area Foundation has been really knocking on our door, wanting to help, and so then we have the Wild Rivers Coast Alliance that some of our guests mentioned, and so a lot of this seems like repetitive paperwork, but as I follow through, it's not. And when you have that kind of documentation and that kind of planning, it's going to be much easier to get the help we need and the attention we need. The other thing I would mention, Becky Crockett, our Curry Director of Planning, was going to speak today, and she's out with an illness, so I'm sure she'll be back any time. And her and I attended the meeting in Bannon with the DLCD, and I didn't need to say much of that meeting because she said it so well, and that basically is the barriers that land use planning are creating, that sometimes that we have available property and we're going to save it for the wildlife and disregard the need for families and veterans, and we're, again, always the emphasis on workforce housing. And so she was able to communicate very well with the DLCD representatives, and they were very open, and it's going to be a legislative fix. It has to go back to legislature to, we're going to be working for Curry County to be a pilot county on some of these if it's possible, to relax some of those barriers that Ms. Goodman amply pointed out. So that's all I have. Thank you for the little bit of extra time, board.
Can I have one more minute? I'm not even a minute.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention that I really appreciated hearing from Beth, especially in developing public and private partnership tools, and we need to build that local architecture. When I talk about that nonprofit earlier, that's what I'm kind of highlighting as something that might work.
Thank you again, Connie. That's all I have, board. Thank you all very much, and really appreciate the excellent work. We're going to crack this nut, and we're definitely progressing forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Monica Ward is up next with the Cascadia Rising 2022. Oh, thank you, ladies. The mouse gets tossed around. Monica, thank you for being patient and.
No worries.
Yeah. So
did you get the presentation I sent last night?
Emergency management. Mouse.
Yeah.
This one?
Yes.
All right, slideshow from the beginning.
Down and there you go.
You want?
All right.
Would you like you want the mouse?
No.
Okay.
Why are we?
I don't know. What's that?
We're echoing.
Oh,
you are.
I am.
All of us are.
Sorry.
All right. Good morning. I am Monica Ward, the Curry County Emergency Management Coordinator, and this presentation is to go over a few exercises called Cascadia Rising that we conducted this past June.
Go ahead.
Yes, next slide. Thank you. So what is Cascadia Rising? Cascadia Rising started a few years ago as a national level exercise for FEMA Region 10. Essentially, it's a response to a Cascadia earthquake and tsunami. This past year, it became a local exercise due to COVID. FEMA was getting pulled away into multiple directions, so they just handed it down to the counties. So we went ahead and partnered with Coos County and moved forward with the exercise. Next slide, please. So the first exercise was the Southern Oregon Coast Port Tabletop Exercise. A tabletop exercise is just discussion-based. We hosted in Port Orford because we had Coos County ports present as well. And they had two different scenarios. The first was the Cascadia earthquake and tsunami. In that scenario, the ports were completely destroyed, and we asked the port managers to discuss what did they need to do to establish operations on the beaches, because the Navy has planned to bring resources by sea. And in the second scenario is what this image is for. It was a submarine landslide that caused a tsunami, and the ports were damaged, and they were able to reestablish operations, but we wanted them to tell us what had to take place for them to be able to reestablish those operations. So the importance of the second scenario is this is a threat to our communities that many people don't realize. A submarine landslide can occur without an earthquake, An earthquake that occurred months before can actually trigger these landslides. So we're not going to feel the earth shake. We're not going to have any type of notice, and it's going to be a local tsunami. Not many models out there to determine how large of a tsunami can actually be created by a submarine landslide. There's a lot of studies in Europe. Spain recently did a study, England did a study, and they are starting to identify these risks. So the drop-off out there at the subduction zone does present an additional threat to us. So it was really educational for our port managers to understand that they can be told to evacuate without ever feeling the ground shaking. Next slide, please. Thank you. So at the exercise, we had 7 primary participants. So 3 were from the Department of Defense, Navy, and Coast Guard. Sorry, 4. Then we had 2 of our port managers from Brookings Harbor and 1 from Port Abandon. Port of Gold Beach, Port of Port Orford, and Port of Coos Bay were all invited. 2 had emergencies that day, and then the Port of Gold Beach was dealing with the high dock situation, and dredging started that week. So it was just really poor timing for them to be able to attend. We also had the Coos County Emergency Managers, Oregon Department of Emergency Management, and then I facilitated the exercise as the exercise director. Next slide, please. So we just finished our after action review and improvement plan. This is important following every exercise because it's how we tell the state and our federal agencies we exercised, we identified our strengths and weaknesses, but this is how we're going to address our capability gaps. On the right, our ratings were all M, which means we had major challenges. And they, even during the discussion, they weren't able to accomplish the goals because they are missing equipment and there's a lot of capability gaps, which we'll go over. So the capabilities we tested were debris clearance, receiving resources, and evacuations. Next slide, please. All right, so here's our improvement plan. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on these. The official after action reports, reviews, and improvement plans have been attached to the packet. They are about 17 pages each, but this gives you a decent idea on debris clearance. A lot of it has to do with our equipment for both counties are in the tsunami inundation zone. So we're going to have to rely heavily on our private partners if we're not staging equipment outside that inundation zone. The ports even did an assessment and gave us a list of equipment that they're going to need to clear the beaches or even clear their ports. Receiving resources, the Navy has done an amazing job on surveying 4 beaches between Curry County and Coos County. We are requesting additional surveys. These surveys tell us what beaches they can safely land their craft at because they're not going to be able to bring in those large ships. They're going to bring in the smaller craft to bring in the essential resources. Because depending on the weather, we cannot always rely on air, and our roads are going to be destroyed, so bringing anything by land. So we're looking at all the different modes to be able to receive resources. Next slide, please.
Monica, you said there's only 4 beaches that are approved right now?
They're not even approved, that they've surveyed.
If they've looked at, okay.
Yes. The surveys, there's a lot more for the central and northern coast because those counties were much more involved in this process in the past. So our port managers, knowing the land, they are putting together a list of beaches and requesting the Navy to conduct additional assessments. Okay. Once those assessments are done, we are going to plan on a exercise with the Navy to actually land their craft at one of our beaches between Curry County or Coos County. Okay. Since we are partnered in this, we don't know which beach they're going to select. It's going to have a lot to do on those surveys and the assessments that pretty much it is all about the waves coming in and the danger of flipping that craft. They're not going to put their personnel at risk. Mm-hmm. And something that we did identify in the report is these surveys are based on our current coastline. The coastline is going to change, but it does give us a baseline for following a major earthquake on where they need to begin their assessments on where they can actually bring these craft.
Would you expect that to happen in the next year, or what's your projection there?
It takes some time to do the surveys. I mean, even when I read the surveys, all I looked at was whether it was acceptable or unacceptable, because there's so much data in these surveys. I was confused reading them.
Okay.
All I knew is our beaches didn't pass. I think Hunter Creek was the only one where we're like, maybe with a waiver, we'll bring them in there. And I can even forward those surveys to you, but
Well, if you can't understand them, then no sense sending them to us.
so it'll take a few years to get all the beaches on our list surveyed. But at least we've got the momentum going forward now. The Navy understands our vulnerabilities here. I mean, even our Coast Guard partners did not understand the vulnerabilities of just Curry County. They thought we would have a ton of resources coming in. They didn't realize we only have one airport up north. And if Humbug Mountain has major landslides, it's going to be difficult to get anything south unless we're bringing it by helicopter. It was eye-opening to all participants on recognizing these vulnerabilities and where our capability gaps were. Right. Thank you. So, sorry, previous slide.
Next one, I'm back.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Trying to think ahead.
Thank you. So evacuations were a delicate topic because, especially in Curry County, we decommissioned our sirens as a county, but our ports do not have mass notification systems. And if there isn't proper cell phone coverage there, even with a distant tsunami or a no-notice tsunami, we don't have the ability to properly notify the residents at the RV parks, people who are visiting. The problem really comes to those ports that have additional properties, like Gold Beach. They have the airport, they have the RV park. So they discuss a lot on how are they going to notify, and the fact that they don't have the manpower to actually evacuate the ports and keep people from going to the ports. Everyone wants to watch a tsunami come in, but the ports are not the place to watch a tsunami come in. Go to high ground if you really want to watch a tsunami come into the area. So Port of Brookings Harbor, they had a lot of experience with that. They struggled keeping people out of the port during the 2011 tsunami. Recommendation is getting some memorandums of understanding or agreement with local law enforcement to assist them, and simple solution, purchasing barricades that they can put up to stop the flow of people coming into the ports. Next slide, please. All right, so our second exercise was actually 2 exercises, a morning shift and an afternoon shift for our emergency operations center. We did this so we could exercise and train more of our county staff who had never had the opportunity to work in the EOC before. Same scenario, earthquake and tsunami, but it occurred 5 days prior. And all they were given was there was an earthquake and tsunami, and here's this incident action plan with a few tactical objectives. Figure out what our objectives need to be, and accomplish them. We did allow them to use communications and electricity just to make sure they focused on those objectives and really trained on that. Next slide, please. All right, so here are our 6 objectives. They were able to look at the incident action plan and by section identify what objectives they needed to address as the strategic support center to Incident Command. The first objective was the big one, and I even included the link if we wanted to explore it. Oregon did an assessment and actually mapped a lot of the islands that we expect to see following a major earthquake and tsunami. So you've got to think landslides, all the bridges that go out. Curry County has 60 plus islands that will occur.
Could you please say that again?
60 plus islands, because they've only mapped 42, but they skipped a third of the county. They only focused on Port Orford North, right around Gold Beach, and Brookings Harbor. ODHS is trying to get the funding to go ahead and finish those assessments so that we can actually map the entire county, but it was a great start. 42 different islands our county departments assessed for us. So a C-Pod is a community point of distribution. That's where we're just handing out supplies to people because stores are closed or it's just items that they need. It's life safety. That is what we do after the fact, but really that they were identifying where we need to place community caches, and they were to put one on every island. All right, next slide, please. So both shifts received the same ratings for our capabilities. We tested the county resources, the EOC staff, and the facility itself. The difference from the previous ratings with the port is with the C-Pod locations, they did great. There were only some challenges. They performed much better than expected considering that our EOC staff has never actually activated or worked together before in a situation like this. Next slide, please. All right, so a lot of information on here and they moved in the same direction for most of the capabilities. This capability is specifically for the county resources, and this is why I love having two different shifts. The two different teams working with the same information came up with different issues. The morning shift focused on the fact that Gold Beach doesn't have many areas to place shelters. All their shelters are in the tsunami inundation zone. So they had to look at, like, first thing everyone did, when they looked at the map, they're like, where do I live? Is my home okay? Is my work okay? And then they really started to realize a lot of our critical infrastructure and what we rely on is in the tsunami inundation zone. Gold Beach was the big topic because everyone recognized Port Orford and they recognized Harbor, but they didn't realize just how vulnerable Gold Beach was because it's never really been discussed.
And
yes,
it's lower elevation than the other two cities by considerable.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the wave is projected to be much higher coming through Gold Beach, about 30 feet higher than the other locations.
How are we as we sit right now? Never mind, I'm just kidding.
So morning shift really focused on Gold Beach and then just the lack of where we can stage resources. And in the afternoon shift, and we'll get to this later, they didn't clearly understand the left and right limits of their objectives. They kept going down the rabbit holes that had nothing to do with the objectives, and we'll hit on why that occurred in a bit here. So next slide, please. All right, for training, well, the EOC staff, training was the big one. They need more training. The week prior to the EOC exercise, I offered, I believe, 5 or 6 different sessions where for an hour and a half, 2 hours, the staff had the opportunity to come in and we went over the basics of working in an EOC. They got to go over their binders, they learned about their position, we went over forms, how we communicate with the incident command, and the big difference between the two is the morning shift, it was just communication, period, the communication flow through the EOC, and the afternoon shift hit on emails. Instead of using their work email, we need to set up position-specific emails so that they get the same emails that their previous shift did. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the facility itself, in the morning, I loved it. We crashed our Wi-Fi. It broke. We could not do anything. We had to kick everyone off the Wi-Fi and slowly bring people back on, which was a great test of our capabilities because during an actual response, that means now we cannot have more than maybe 5 people on the Wi-Fi or we're going to crash it again. And that's not acceptable considering everything we do is digital when it comes to tracking, reporting, looking at maps. So major weakness for the EOC itself and everything else that came out to layout, space, and just equipment. I have addressed a few of the supply issues with the few funds I had remaining at the end of last FY. I purchased some Post-it dry erase boards, which are sticky dry erase boards that you can move around, in a full admin box of additional supplies for the EOC. Next slide, please.
Oops, went too far. Mouse is not fun.
All
There's
right,
some people we know.
So some key points here, and in the photos you have on the left the morning shift for our logistics section, and on the right is our afternoon shift with logistics. So they did identify 42 locations for the disaster caches. And it was really interesting watching their discussions come down to this, because they didn't just look at the map and say, this looks like a good idea. They looked at the terrain like, hey, you know, this is a little too steep. People aren't going to be able to get here. Or, hey, you know, this is a great place. Everyone knows where this is. It was amazing watching them come together and discuss where is the best place to put all of these caches for the communities. They did identify 4 additional sites for further assessment. For example, Agnes was not on the map whatsoever. So they identified a few places in Agnes for us to go assess and see where we should put some caches. Logistics went into great detail on what we need to be putting in these community caches, and they even identified, well, this community, they have a much older population, so we need to consider this for this cache versus other caches. And they even made a list of our key community partners to help build the caches and who we need to work with following a disaster. So great job all around for our EOC staff. So participation broken down between the 2 shifts. Both shifts accomplished all objectives, did an amazing job with it, and went through update briefs, which are held in the planning section once an hour, where all the section chiefs come over and we just provide a real quick update to maintain situational awareness throughout the EOC. The afternoon shift, we did have 2 people leave after the first hour. They participated in the morning shift, but they were doing a handoff with the planning section chief, which was actually Dave Barnes, who was covering down. He is actually our finance section chief, so he was kind of dual-hatted during the afternoon shift. And like I mentioned earlier, the afternoon shift kind of struggled to stay online with their objectives, and the big difference is how few of them actually completed the training the week before. So the training the week before, these statistics help prove that training was beneficial, and taking the time and effort to build that training and put everyone through it really helped them out in this exercise. And I want to thank all of our observers. The Red Cross, they were lifesavers during this. They sat there, they talked out shelters, they offered training, and they really helped our EOC staff grasp what their capabilities are and what they can bring to the response. Next slide, please. Here are a few comments from our observers. So Red Cross, we also had our regional Red Cross representative here, and they had been to several of these exercises. They were impressed with how motivated our EOC staff was. They came in, they grabbed their binders, they put on their badges, they got to work. And they did a great job on their documentation. They weren't afraid to ask questions. They wanted to learn. So that leaning forward really impressed all the observers. And I've spent years working with command post operation teams. So our EOC staff is equivalent to a command post team. And they did an amazing job, and I really encourage them to just ride out this momentum and keep improving, because we are starting from scratch with our EOC on training, and I believe over the next year with the few exercises we're going to do, they're going to be more than capable of handling a response, especially if I'm not there, because right now they lean heavily on their EOC director. Next slide, please. So going forward, we will begin section level training. I have begun working with some of our state partners for them to come in and actually facilitate this section level training. So ODHS has offered to come in and train on logistics, because they deal a lot with the logistics. And a few other agencies have offered to come in and train planning and operations, so that they are getting some training from people who do this often, because our state agencies are constantly activating to support other counties. So we will conduct 1 to 2 EOC exercises by March. ODHS does have an exercise in March here in Curry County, and at this time we will do a partial EOC activation in that exercise because it's a mass care and shelter exercise, so it's a great training opportunity for our operations section. Cascadia Rising 2023.
Sorry.
JJ, forgive us. JJ, I
No
told him I would
worries.
call him if he would give me a number, but he didn't give me a number.
Hello.
I'll send him an email. I think it's probably Gordon.
So we have 3 exercises next June. The first of which is going to be a debris management tabletop exercise. As a coastal community, we don't have to worry about just the earthquake. We have to worry about what debris the tsunamis are going to bring to us. So we're going to do the tabletop exercise so that we can actually have a thorough and well thought out plan developed on debris management. I belong to the Healthcare Coalition, so I will be participating in their hospital surge functional exercise.
Just let it ring. It'll go right to voicemail.
And
Hello, Gordon. Hello.
Unplug it. If he needs to call, I've got an email to him, and he's pretty good.
Sorry,
at it.
Monica.
no worries. So the hospital exercise is actually regional. At this time, I'm not sure if our hospital will be participating. We're still working out all the details, but our exercises here in Curry County will work around the schedule for the hospital exercise. And then the EOC functional exercise may become a full-scale exercise. This exercise was just an idea that I'd thrown out on what I wanted to test our county on, and it has quickly gained momentum to where other counties and state agencies have asked to play with us. Can't share a lot of details because it's going to be a surprise for our county staff and all the jurisdictions playing. They will not find out what's happening until the day of the exercise. And I've listed some of the agencies I've reached out to play with us, and if the other counties do actually play with us, this is going to become a regional exercise, which means we may receive FEMA support in the exercise development, so that I do not have to spend the next 9 months writing the entire exercise on my own. It would be great to get their support. And that concludes my presentation.
Right. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Quick question.
Court's got a question for you, Monica.
Well, I know you inherited quite a chore and quite a mess, forgive me, but great to have you here. How did you find the time to do that? I have 2 quick questions, Mr. Chair. How did you find the time to do that PowerPoint with no help?
I did it last night when I left here, and I submitted it to JJ at about midnight.
And I know you worked all weekend with the Rum Creek fire, and of all the meetings we've had, I don't recall if I've talked to you about Cape Blanco Airport. Have you been there yet?
I have been there.
Good.
They are on the state map and the regional, like FEMA, everyone. So I've been focused a lot on the command post.
Yeah, our long-term vision on that is for some of the things that you've discussed here, you know, the ships coming in, helicopters, you know, a mile-long runway, and we got our $3 million grant. It's granted, it's primarily for study and planning, but it's a big step, and the state has taken a tremendous interest in the emergency management portion of that, and that's our greatest cause on that right now, and we're real hopeful. Thank you. I just assumed you hadn't been there yet, but very glad to hear you have been there.
Yes, I've been there. I am observing everything that's going on there. I mean, just being one person, my bandwidth right now, I'm focused on getting the behind-the-scenes coordination and really improving the collaboration between the county and our jurisdictions, because we're all we have. So we need to figure it out and get everything on paper and then start doing the full-scale exercises and bringing in the Navy and all the fun stuff where the public can see a lot more. But we've got to get that foundation established first so that if something does occur, we're able to take care of the community.
Well, also thanks to you, Curry County is leading in this region, and that's your connection with Coos County and other counties is it's just really a wonderful thing to see and be a small part of, and I just really want to encourage you to Keep doing the work you're doing. This is outstanding.
Thank you.
And the picture you sent the other day of Huskanaden is the best view I've seen yet. The aerial, I mean, I had 3 or 4 dozen photos of that highway collapse in 2019, and that's the best picture. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I
You
have.
bet. One quick question, Monica. In the case of a tsunami, I mean, these airports are going to be non-functional, right? As far as the earth moving, and what's your thoughts on that?
Cape Blanco supposedly will be fine. It may have some cracks. It's the type of rock it's on. Gold Beach, no. Our runway there is going to be gone. And Brookings, it's out of the tsunami inundation zone, but right now there's a major push through the Pacific Northwest and to retrofit these runways. I've got to work with Brookings and try to get them on that list. Because even if they cannot land large craft there, they can still bring in smaller craft and bring in resources. But we've got to get on that list. And the retrofitting runways actually came from Japan. All their major runways are retrofit. So they actually just kind of roll with the earthquake. So there are no major cracks so that we can actually start bringing aircraft quickly. I think our major problem, if the runway does survive, is getting lighting and everything back up, because they have to have the lighting. Following the hurricanes in the Virgin Islands, that was our biggest issue. We had to request what's called an airport in a box that they dropped, and then we put up a temporary tower, and it came with all the lights and everything. So those are all cause and effect that we've got to think about.
Okay.
Hopefully I can get them on that list and get a retrofit there, but you'll see there's, I think, maybe 4 or 5 runways in the state right now, including Portland, that are going through a retrofit.
Okay. Any other questions for Monica? Thank you, Monica. Great presentation.
Terrific.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, 6 through J.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Got a motion? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor? Any discussion? Have I heard any? Not hearing any. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0. We are going to move right into discussion action items. Acceptance of community development block grant funds for small businesses. Is that Summer Madsen is not here.
She'll be running
So
down the
she'll
hallway
be
in a
running.
second. I just heard the door slam. Yep, that was Colin.
Seven A, Summer, if you're there you are.
Hi.
Hi, go ahead.
We were granted the CDBG grant for micro enterprise and small business support with regard to the impacts of COVID. And so I just need, I think we've already established signature authority with the initial order, and just need approval to have the chair sign that and submit that back to Business Oregon.
Any questions for Summer?
Great work.
So I'll entertain a motion then.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second?
Second, to approve the acceptance of this grant.
Okay. All in favor say yes.
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 Motion carries 3-0. B and C we're going to combine. Thanks, Summer. We had
B and D.
B and D. Or, well, were we going
B and D.
Yeah, B and D. Because we did the
Actually, there's
7.
going to be a lot more question for me on D than there is B, so I don't know if we want to keep them together, but and just.
Okay.
So however you want to do it, Mr. Chair.
Well, we're going to go in our packet. Let's just go right to 7B and look at it first.
Can I catch up to you there?
Yep.
Whoops. Okay, I'm there, Mr. Chair. Did you, 7B or D?
7B.
Okay.
Is the first, that's our next one after A. So this is funding for Christian Help, Cape Furlough Fire District, and Brother Brother Bruin's youth purchase or program.
Yeah, so thank you for allowing me to present these on the record and submitting them for the agenda. These are, I think we're kind of in the cleanup mode of the ARP funds and kind of trying to just bring closure to those items that you have funded and making sure that we wrap those up and kind of taking a look at the funds that we have left available and hopefully making the most of those. And with that, so I had put these 3 applications on the agenda, and I will share that I did send copies of those to the ARP committee. And I think that might have been what initiated this conversation. Regardless, so Commissioner Boyce had also worked with Monica Ward in submitting the request for our fire districts. And so Commissioner Boyce and I got together and really kind of brainstormed how to maximize the investment of some of the remaining ARP funds in hopes that we could bring to the board some ideas that we thought might help really just maximize those dollars. So I will say a couple of these applications, I'm not sure. I think I referenced on the ARS that they were submitted, maybe not through the ARP committee process. It kind of, there was an impression that maybe the committee was not, well, that they were done with their work as of the end of December, maybe. I'm not sure, but due diligence, I'm bringing those forth. So would you like me to go through them one by one, or how would you like to handle this, Commissioner Boyce? Because I know it's going to be
You're
kind
doing
of a
fine, and
fairly
just,
fluid
we
conversation.
might want the board to know this could take 20 minutes, but it'll be very productive time in my view.
Yep.
Thank you.
Agreed. Okay. So let me see. What do I have on here first is Christian Help. Okay. So I thank Mary Rowe for coming this morning and sharing her insight with regards to the funding that we have been able to provide through ARP for our food banks and those nonprofits that really have seen an uptick in services required as a result of COVID. I think in order to be fair with regards to equality in those services and those fundings, we need to look not only at the population they serve, but the resources they have available to them outside of operating as a nonprofit, fundraising, grants, paid staff versus not, and things like that. With the application of Christian Help, Christian Help provides services. They're boots on the ground and they just get it done. They're not promoting themselves. They know what the needs that need to be met and they meet them. And that includes the snack pack program that initially started at Riley Creek and expanded to the high school as well. Stepped up to the plate and made sure that no child would go hungry, and has seen a huge uptick in the needs of snack packs going home with our school children to make sure they have healthy food to eat over the weekend. And as you know, that they extended that through the summer as well, which is huge. But they also are responsible for putting those snack packs together, getting them to the right kids, and making sure that they have enough supply on hand, which you know has been more difficult to secure with the increase of goods and services costs. So basically, the roof on Christian Help needs to be repaired. And right now, they're having an influx of some water issues that we want to mitigate, impacting the infrastructure of the building to the extent that we're going to have to look at repairing some walls as well. Initially, they were hoping it was a patch and repair, which Commissioner Herzog was so gracious to offer. Hey, we've got some help. We can help, you know, get that shored up for you guys and make sure it's not leaking. So they had a construction professional come on site and said, this is really what you need to do to secure the building. So not only does that support Christian Help, the thrift store, but it also supports those, because Curry County is has their seat in Gold Beach. Not only is the food bank and the thrift store impacted by those upticks in numbers that Brookings Harbor Community Helpers also experiences, in addition to the population coming and going from the jail and the additional traffic we see with that respect. They're the first ones to offer somebody shoes when they leave the jail without proper clothing or support. But they also do run the food bank. And as Commissioner Boyce will share with you, he's working diligently on the food share program, and they participate in that program as well as Brookings Harbor Community Helpers and Port Orford. So with this request is initially it was what, 38,000, Commissioner? 43. But then Commissioner Boyce was like, hey, look what I found out. And so here's what inspired our kind of creative thinking.
So, yes, thank you very much, Economic Director Madison. Yeah, I've known Nancy Sorensen a long time, just terrific people. Everything you identified there, the work that they do, is a good reminder. We need to know I almost want to say the pressure on the tremendous number of volunteers. Nancy's the only one that's paid, and it's not a huge salary, of course. So yes, originally I thought 43,000. I thought that's a big chunk. So of course I called, and she gave me some very good information. The biggest concern I have, well, first of all, the contractor is very reputable, very well known here. He actually called me. I didn't ask him to, but he called me and said, do you have any questions? I said, well, matter of fact, the first thing that would be somewhat of a concern is that's an old building, and it goes back to the old one-stop years. Mm-hmm. That was the original only little building supply, except for Knox Building Supply out by, just below the Sebastian Shores. Shore Pines, I'm sorry. Yep. Shore Pines. And so he said, yes, we've looked at that, and they're going to put a pitch roof on. I think you referenced that. We talked about that yesterday. It's not going to be a huge pitch. And when they pull the flat roof off, which will be the end of this month, okay, when they pull the flat roof off, they're going to look for any possible rot or anything that would give them concern, and they will fix that. Will be included in the bid. Okay, the bid is $80,000. We didn't know that Nancy and her staff, Ms. Sorensen, got a $50,000 grant from the Ford Foundation. So, boy, I was glad I was sitting down when I heard that, because that was big news and really great to hear. And so that left a balance of $30,000. I said, well, I would like to go to the board, Ms. Sorensen, and offer 25, which would only be 5,000 short. And then after talking to her further, talking to you, my recommendation, the board, I could talk about this quite a bit, but I'm all in favor of this project. The only other question I had, and I can't remember if you and I talked about this yesterday, on the long-term development of and the hope that we're going to build a new jail and courthouse, would we be putting a lot of money into that facility, and then 5-10 years from now wish that we would not have done that and would have been using that property, purchase parking or whatever we might need. So I think in terms of that, with the building being pretty sound, the roof repair, the schedule they have, the plans they have, the company that will do this work, I just want to offer to the board, I have a lot of confidence. And if you want to go 30 instead of 43, it's still a big chunk. The other thing I want to mention, and this is going to come up in the youth program, we've worked very hard to make sure we're treating all sections of the county fair. We don't want to overlook Harbor. We don't want to overlook Langless, whatever the circumstances. And I think that with the work we've done with the Brookings Harbor helpers, the food bank there, I think we're okay. I really would, if the taxpayers said, hey, or the people from other areas said, what about us? I think we would have a pretty responsible and adequate answer for them. So I'm real confident in that as well. And so, yeah, I support this project and ready to move on to the next one if the board wants to support it based on 30,000.
I have one question. Who owns the property?
So the nonprofit owns the property.
That's fine. That's all I needed to know. I didn't want, because if it's land, if it's a rental or a lease, then the landowner's responsible for the repair of the roof, so.
Right, that's a great point. I almost did teeter on the edge of asking one of the board members to come, but I know you know all of them.
Yeah.
We've got Michelle all day.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that. I just wanted to make sure it was owned by them.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Okay, I'm good with
Yeah,
that.
they have incredible volunteers there.
We do. And the fact that we're going to be able to mitigate the mold and moisture issues will make sure that we're continuing to provide a safe space for those volunteers to work in. So that it just goes beyond, just the surface issues to be addressed. And I thank you for considering this.
And by the way, that it is the entire roof of that building.
Yep. Yeah, the first ask was just go up there and cover it and roll on some rubber, but it needs to be replaced. And so let's just do these individually, and so I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. For the 30.
For the 30?
Second, Mr. Chair.
Okay, got a motion and a second. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Do you have a new roofing company, Herzog Acme Roofing?
No, I don't. But this needs to be fixed.
I couldn't resist, sorry.
That's all right.
I appreciate your volunteer spirit.
I've been in the back room when it's not nice outside and they're dodging buckets, and it's a good fix. So next up, Summer.
Okay, thank you, commissioners. The next on my pile here is for Cape Frello Fire District, and so this application was submitted some time ago. Again, I think it just fell through the cracks of the process with the ARP committee. And so I wanted to process this and get that in front of you, because this is in the effort to recruit and retain firefighters, but more importantly, the personal...
Excuse me, Summer, real quick. Jerome, you got it?
Yes, one of the mics might be off. The volume is very low, so...
Just tap it,
That's not true.
They need batteries, or?
You can hear them. That one's on.
Let's see. Yes, one of them does need batteries, so I'm going to change that.
Can we afford batteries?
Yeah, we went back to the echo again.
She can just talk into one for now.
Work on this, this one.
Yeah, we're 20 minutes to lunch.
Okay, so this is one of the items that Commissioner Boyce and I kind of, worked through with regards to funding of the fire districts and making sure those districts have some support from the county with ARP funds. And one of the arguments that I had made with keeping the Cape Frello Fire District application separate from the other recommendation is that this is an urgent need. This is personal protective equipment. This is safety equipment. This is not something that is negotiable with regards to needs, right? And so, so I said, how about we go ahead and just say, yeah, let's process this one, because it's still going to take time, especially in the height of the fire season right now, to actually get that equipment. I think Monica Ward shared with me there is quite a delay in actually securing those pieces of equipment and getting them delivered. So in my opinion, the sooner the better, but only because with the conversation of the $100,000 potentially going, do we want to go into this right now, Commissioner?
No, certainly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all connected.
The fire districts?
Yeah.
It's next on the agenda, and Commissioner, want to get in your negotiating posture and see how you want to weigh in on this.
I'm ready to move on this, but the other ones I'm not. That's what I'm trying to say.
So let's do them individually.
Sure. Okay. So with that, Commissioner, we could entertain, if this is approved, then we reevaluate the number on this one, or maybe exclude Cape Frello from that equation.
Well, if I have to vote now, then I would vote no, and then hopefully I'll get a chance to come back to it and reference it and the importance of it. No disagreeing with you, but I want to tie it all in together. That was my focus for bringing the two agenda items together earlier today.
Well, why don't I take a pause then
of build out with Monica what the vision was for item 7D.
I appreciate that very much. So here's, I don't know if this is one picture. This is just going up out of Pistol River on the south exit of the fire. The amount of effort between Coos Forest Protective and our limited volunteer fire departments, they jumped on this. There are all kinds of houses in here. This is just one photo. If you go down to Weed, California, they've lost 2 lives. They've lost 100 homes. It's up around 5,000 acres. We've got the Rum Creek fire. Where's some other pictures, JJ?
Of what?
Is it this one, maybe?
All the pictures certainly are on the right-hand side.
Yep, this is it. I did a press release with the plagiarized, with the permission of Emergency Management Director Ward, and so this is another view of that photo, and I'll tell you why I'm taking the time to do this. It sees you can see and feel the response there. I mean, it's amazing what they did, and we have, again, I'm going to reference the Rum Creek fire, which is growing. It's up almost 20,000 acres now. It's within about 11 miles of the Curry County line, upstream on Rogue River of Mariel, and that area. So we have allocated $500,000 for housing. You know, that's my number 2 issue. Just me personally, my number 1 issue is fire. If you look at the pictures of Weed, California, of the homes that were destroyed, or go back to the summer, the Labor Day fires of Phoenix and Talent, we lost 2,000 homes. And so to ask for 100,000, or maybe in this case 117,000, you know, what I'm requesting of this board is we have some incredible fire people, both at the state, federal, and certainly the local level. So at the local level, we have Northern County Chief David Duncan, Central Curry, we have Chief Tyson Krieger, and we have Curry County Fire Chief in southern portion of the county, Jim Watson. I would give them the money and give them the responsibility, maybe with a due pass or recommendation of the board of the 17,000 for the Cape Ferrello, but of the 14 volunteer fire departments, they all have needs. Now, there are some exceptions. There are a couple, I understand there are a couple of districts out there that have got a lot of funds available. But the folks that don't have funds, or the departments that don't have funds, doesn't mean that they don't have very urgent matters. And I've been working with Cape Ferrello. I'm aware. They come to our fire awareness meetings every June. They are very engaged and much appreciated. Every one of these departments needs additional volunteers. You remember a few years ago, they even had to pay for their training, personally out of their own pockets. So that, you know, that's my take on the 100,000. Or if the board wanted to make it 117, get it into the hands of the professionals and say, hey, maybe with Curry County Board of Approval, Commissioner approval, we could make this recommendation to go. You know, here's how we want to distribute the funds, and here's the greatest need. It goes back to the fire board. So you know, if you want to add something to that, I should have had you lead, but I'm a little bit passionate about fire and what the risk levels of risk are. So, Emergency Management Director Ward, would you come on up, please? And don't leave, Summer.
I think it's important to remember that the Fire Defense Board, every fire chief in the county sits on that board. And they are working really hard, especially as volunteers, to obtain as many grants as possible. They're working with state fire marshals. They are working with their cities. They are jumping through hoops just trying to get the funding. I mean, Agnes just did their fundraiser picnic, and Oprah is getting ready to do some type of exercise in honor of 9/11, and all of it is just to raise money. But I mean, our fire districts, they have aging equipment. I mean, some of their equipment, the apparatus, I'm surprised that they haven't been injured trying to drive it, listening to their stories. Oregon State Fire Marshals are working with them trying to replace some of that, but a lot of it comes down to just their personal protective equipment. This gear, it ages, it has to fit them properly, and that's where a lot of the needs are. Because, I mean, this last weekend alone, almost every fire district in our county responded to the 3 fires, or they were supporting it in some way. Because I loved watching it, because I've sat on their boards and I've listened to them discuss, hey, if this is occurring in this part of the county, these departments, they're going to shift down, and they're going to do this, and you actually watched it. Illinois 6's pulled over. They all shifted towards Central County to provide coverage for their communities because all of our districts were on these fires. Brookings Harbor, they were shifting north to cover down. Cape Corello, they were shifting. So if you think about it, they responded to 3 fires back to back on Sunday. They were out there all day, and then they also had all the beach fires, the lift assist calls. These guys spent these volunteers spent their entire holiday weekend not celebrating the holiday, but they were on calls all weekend, and at the same time they're preparing for Rum Creek fires across the county lines. They're staging equipment, they're going over plans. So they are working really hard, and at the same time they've got needs, especially when it comes to their turnout gear and just the life safety equipment. So and back in April, we held the wildfire meeting, and I think there was a lot of confusion because there was a discussion about the ARP funds at that time, but it never went anywhere. So the fire districts at, I believe that was our last meeting or the meeting in July, they had mentioned, well, we didn't get the funding. And that's when we started talking about, well, they were like, well, we gotta go for grants. And there were all these conversations, well, let's run the ARP funding to ground, because if it was discussed but nothing was actually submitted, let's go ahead and actually submit what was discussed at the April wildfire meeting. So that's how all of this came out with the fire districts. And by awarding it through the board, the fire chiefs can discuss who needs it, how much, and kind of divvy up who needs what. So if a district doesn't need anything, then they're not going to pull from it. But they have a much better understanding of what the needs are, and even making our capabilities even throughout the county. So that's why we went with the boards.
That was going to be my question, Monica, is the disbursement. So you're saying this, if we did this, $100,000, then that board would, and it's all the chiefs of the,
yes.
So there would be a vote and this, or, okay?
Yeah, so, I mean, every fire chief has a seat at the table. I mean, I go to the meetings, well, the FEMA is there, but, and CFPA is there, and they work as a team. They lean on each other, so they know what each other's needs are, and they'll be able to, with the knowledge, be able to divvy up the funding on the needs, but also making sure all the money doesn't go to just North County or just South.
Gotcha. Any other questions for Monica?
I have one question for Monica, but I got
questions. Go ahead.
Oh, Boy said he had something.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm a first responder advocate to the 10th degree. I mean, our law enforcement, first responders of all kinds need everything they can get. Am I in support of this equipment needed for
Cape Ferrelo?
Cape Ferrelo, absolutely, 100%. They've itemized what they need. Let's pay them for it. I would like to see these districts that need something come and issue us a list of these are our needs. This is our budget constraint. Can you please? And absolutely, I would then say, let's do that. But to just write a check for $100,000 and give it to some people, I don't think that's a proper administrative way for us to administer the ARP funds. I would ask that each district that is in need, show us your need, show us the budget constraint, and we write a check. And that's don't put the cart before the horse. That's wrong, Steve.
Yeah.
Show us your need. Let's just not write a check. Because I know districts that don't need anything right now. I know districts that have huge surpluses, as Commissioner Boyce mentioned. But so the ones that have a need, let's act quickly. We can have a special meeting. If they get it here in 3 days, let's have a special meeting and get that check to them. But I don't agree with just sending the money to all the fire districts and say, okay, guys, divvy it up. Just do it equally, please.
Court?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have such confidence in these people I've got to know over the 6 years I've been here. Their professionalism, their spirit of dedication, the risks that they take. Thank goodness that the word is out. And this is one additional way to make the public aware of the level of fire danger we have right this minute is to say, we understand that 100,000 is nothing. If you want to even use part of it for recruiting, you're the professionals, you can determine where that money is best spent. And again, I have unparalleled confidence in their ability to say, no, this is where, they might put it all in one district. I know Agnes is not a taxing district. That is a highly volatile area, and they need funds. And you've got between those three chiefs that I mentioned, you probably got 80 years of experience. So I'm not going to second guess them or say, all of you come to a plan or come to the board with a specific plan. Let them develop the plan. Right now, to conclude, the emphasis here is I've lived here my whole life, and I am extremely concerned, without sounding panicky, I'm very concerned with, we could have another 2 months of dry weather. And if you, again, reference what's going on in weed. We're spending $500,000 on housing, and we don't have the slightest idea of where the specifics are on that. And we've got fire right in front of us, and we want to dicker on, wow, let's waste another couple of weeks, and let's not show the support right up front and direct, and how can we help, and how quick can we get you the support? That's all I have, Mr. Chair. I'm ready to make a motion.
Summer, you had something to add?
Yes, if you don't mind, I would just like to share that in vetting some of these options with Commissioner Boyce yesterday, I do want to share that I have complete confidence in the chiefs on the Fire Defense Board to do right by every district involved in that work. Is $100,000 enough? No, it's absolutely not. I wouldn't even touch it. Do we probably look to prioritize those districts that aren't funded like Agnes? Absolutely. But the one thing that I did think about was, because we're in the process of a consolidation of fire districts, that what they may use this funding for now may be null and void in 6 months to a year. And so maybe a portion of the funding is used to help support them through the process of their consolidations, whereas in that place, then they determine asset inventory and procurement and what needs they have beyond that. I think, though, that might take more time than they have with regards to procuring some of the turnout equipment that they need and such. I have no doubts that they would do right by that funding, but I also do understand that, and we kind of talked about yesterday, we were like, okay, can we do like a 70-30 or an 80-20? And I'm not sure that we ever came down to something.
Well, I did like your idea of using some of the funding for support in determining possible fire district consolidation, because that's not going to be free, and
Right.
it may just be a distraction right now to them, even in the next 2 or 3 months of the fire season. We may get serious rain in a week, although it sure doesn't look like it. But Agnes is a perfect example. We might be looking at 3 or 4 days from now, the Rum Creek fire exploding this direction. I hope not. I don't think so. But.
And I want to say this.
Yes.
I'm not your enemy here, Commissioner Boyce.
Nope.
I am for this. I am for paying every time a volunteer firefighter goes out on a call, he gets paid for it, because that's money out of his pocket. I'm for a lot of that. All I'm saying is, do I trust the chiefs to spend the money right? Absolutely, I trust the chiefs to spend the money right. All I'm saying is, from a financial aspect, from a county government financial aspect of this is the wrong way to go about it. The bill should be submitted first and then the bill paid. If this board elects to do that, and I will because of the sheer time constraint we have on what's blowing up around us right now, absolutely. All I'm saying is the process is backwards. That was my comment.
Yeah, I just don't understand how that squares with the housing thing.
We haven't spent a dime on housing.
I know. This is a pledge. So, Mr. Chair, I'm going to make a motion that we pledge $120,000 up to, not to exceed $120,000, and ask the Curry County Fire Board as emergency management coordinator, director, ward lined out, let them determine where they need that $120,000 Fire is number one in this county right now. We have more fuels than anybody in the western United States.
I'll second that to go to discussion. Discussion is, where do we stand with ARP? I'll ask Treasurer Barnes if he can give a synopsis of where we're at.
As of right now, with the $30,000 that you just pledged to Christian Help, I believe the ARP account balance sits somewhere in the neighborhood of $460,000 remaining to be, that has not been allocated to anything yet. This fire board is something new that I haven't really heard a lot about before, but there is a process to dispersing money, and one of those things is that the organization needs to be registered with the federal government with the Systems Award Management Program. It's called a SAM number. It's created a lot of delays in getting money to other people. Gold Beach Main Street, for one, had issues with getting a SAM number. It took them a while. This is going to take a while. This isn't a check that we can write out next week. This panel has to become formalized. They need to register, and they need to get a SAM number before we can give them any money. So
That's a prerequisite of the government?
The prerequisite, yes, to distribute federal money, it has to be, they have to have a number to distribute federal money to them. So,
because I believe the senior center was really slow in getting that, and it took a while.
yes, they were. So because of their name change between community center and senior center, it took them some time to update their SAM information. And it's going to take a while. So if this is what you want to do, this fire board needs to really get jumping and get themselves registered. So,
and we can help them.
Are they in it?
I know.
No, we can.
I believe you can, yes.
Thank you.
I got another question. So does each individual fire district have that number, or does that make?
So
I do not know.
Okay.
That is something that we had discussed, and that's why Treasurer Barnes is on that agenda routing slip, because we had discussed the Fire Defense Board ultimately is kind of under the oversight of the State Fire Marshal, and so the Defense Board isn't that I could find in records anyways, substantiated to the extent they have a SAM, which means if they receive the funding, they will have to do a SAM. But if they disperse to each fire district, then each fire district is responsible for the reporting and the accountabilities that we have to report to the Department of Administrative Services. And that in itself, like Monica had said, firefighters, they fight fires. You know, they don't want to
help them.
They don't want to write grants. They don't want to do these reports where half the acronyms don't even make sense. They want to fight fires. And so maybe a portion of this $100,000 goes to supporting them using the money as leverage for matching grants outside of immediate needs like the turnout equipment for Cape Farello. But I do know that if we look at granting the $100,000 to the Fire Defense Board for them to disperse as they see fit, it could delay Cape Farello getting what they need immediately, because we're not equipped to roll that plan out with the SAM and the other jurisdictions, the other districts kind of needing to do what they need to do. So that's just my recommendation, is that, I'm sure the Fire Defense Board could say, okay, we need 20,000 in turnouts, and the rest of it we can use to leverage for grants or some administrators to help us. I mean, who knows? I don't, but all I know is they need to stay really good at fighting fires, and this turnout equipment is the number one defense they have.
Would your recommendation then be to do a separately Cape Farello, since they have a separate ask? And it sounds like, are they ready to, do they have a SAM's number? And
Yes, and knowing the folks that serve on that board, I have no question they're probably really ready to execute
That's
on
why I made
this.
the motion 120.
We have to separate them.
yeah, but see,
So you
it
think
sounds.
the fire board's going to deny?
No, I'm just saying, I
It's
think
so-
I think it'll it'll take them more time to process what they've been granted versus Cape Frillo's ready to go.
Okay,
The
so I'm
Fire
gonna make
Defense
it for-
Board doesn't have it documented what exactly they need.
We'll
And
have
that
two
might
separate
take them
motions
6
here.
months, right?
Yeah, so I'll amend the motion, Mr. Chair, 100,000, and then I'd like to make a second motion for the 17,000 for Cape Ferillo. And I almost want to make that subject to the approval of the fire board. Do you anticipate anything there? Any difficulties?
I don't have any.
Emergency Management Director Ward, I mean, what would your thoughts be on that? I mean, they're going to get support, aren't they? Cape Ferillo needs a lot of help. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to amend my motion to 100,000.
100,000, I second that. Any other question, comment?
We got a chance to eliminate some bureaucracy at the local level, sir.
Hearing none, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
I say yes, opposed say no. Motion carries, was it 3 to 0?
How did you vote?
3 to 0.
Great.
Motion carries. So I'll entertain a second motion.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I'll move that we
Ferillo.
support.
For Cape Ferillo.
For Cape Ferillo, the 17,000 is outlined by Curry Economic Development for fire needs on that volunteer fire department.
Okay, got a motion and a second. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Motion carries 3 to 0.
Can we do the last one on the list? Because I see people from South.
I can make a motion right now.
Okay.
Right. Go ahead.
I don't like either one of those guys.
They look like brothers.
I'm ready to make a motion, but don't want to interrupt you.
The only thing is I would like to give them the opportunity to share with you the impact that their programs are making, because when we look at the grassroots of ARP funds and what that's meant for and how this is serving not only our veterans but our kids, especially those that are age 7 to 9, and the testing scores that have come down, the kids that have just decided not to return to school. And oftentimes, Commissioner, how sports are sometimes the only thing bringing the kids back. I could throw, we just want to remove some barriers and help support prevention. I could just throw some, you all know the test results right now and for 2022 versus 2020 through the National Education Association is down by a -5% on reading and a -7 with math. The most impacted are the 4th and the 5th graders. And I just see this, the camaraderie it's also building between Gold Beach and Brookings. If you've been around for a minute, you know that historically with football, it's not been always flowers. So here we go.
But Gold Beach always wins.
Gold Beach and Brookings played against one another last year, and we're coming together. And so I'm going to hand it over to these gentlemen. If you have any questions beyond that, let me know. Otherwise, with the decision of this final item, I will produce orders as a result. Is that fair?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, gentlemen.
This is Mike Hamilton.
Hey, Mike Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioner. Let me paint you a picture real quick. I'm a war veteran, United States Marine Corps.
Hoorah!
Served in Iraq, Afghanistan. One of the scariest moments of my life is watching a 6 to 7-year-old kid shooting an AK-47 right at me. I am passionate about the youth, and I've always been passionate about the youth. Many of you guys know I was a Cub Master who watched over 116 kids, the largest in the state of Oregon. I am now a football coach. I'm running the middle school football program right now. But I am talking on behalf of the Bruin Football Association. And the Bruin Football Association is a activities for football season as well as before football season. The other day I had to turn away 10 kids because they couldn't have funds to pay for the equipment, for everything that's needed to have them play football. The other day I also had a mother call me and tell me she's concerned that one day she's going to come home and her son's not going to be there. And he happens to play on my football team. This breaks my heart. Because as a veteran who is passionate about their youth, don't want to see any of them turn away. Always wants to see them coming back. In the last week, I've had 2 kids come up to me and explain to me about their home life. I thought I was here for football, really. But really, I am an ambassador to these kids. I don't want to see kids turn away for a sport that provides an opportunity to grow as a family and grow as a team and grow as one, just like I was in the Marine Corps. It is sad when you look up statistically for teenagers and kids who commit suicide or are murdered are the top 2 deaths for kids this year. Murder by another kid or suicide. If I have any way to help these kids for something good, I want to do it through football, and I don't want to turn them away. So it is costly. It does cost for these kids to play. Not just to have the equipment, but be able to provide enough equipment to handle as many kids as we started or continue to grow. Yes, a lot of these kids are in single-family homes. Yes, a lot of these kids struggle financially with just food. But if I can make something happen now and be the role model to them to help them grow in the future, then that's what I'm here for. But I need help. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Uh-oh.
I'm just here basically in support of it. Mike, we've known each other for a little bit. My kid got to go into the program during the summer, and you guys know my office in Brookings is tied in with juvenile. Juvenile does stuff there too. My thought is this is more of a prevention thing. Juveniles there usually after when a child gets in trouble, stuff like that. There's no programs that we really have except for, there is a couple in South County, like the bicycle program we were talking about earlier. Like they got the Casper program and stuff like this. There's another one where they give kids bicycle helmets and teach them about, safety laws and stuff like that. But when I got to see my kid go through this program, there's a couple other veterans too. Summer said it best is, this is our future patriots. So that's why veterans is standing behind this. Is not a juvenile thing, it's a youth, and they are our future. So my whole piece is I just stand behind anything that the community wants to do to help our kids. So, like you said, like Summer said, they're our future patriots. So hopefully they'll one day be here doing the same thing.
Question?
Summer, thank you very much, BSO Valley. Could you explain how we're also including North County in this project?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner. So in the effort of being fair and equitable, Commissioner Boyce had said, okay, this is great that South County is including up through Ophir, as far as we can go up north in the county, to bring kids into that program countywide, but it just may not be feasible for our youth in Port Orford. And so we were like, what can we do to support them? And so there is an initiative to maybe to start the film and drone program up in North County. We also discussed the booster club that they have, since we have so many students from Port Orford excelling academically, providing them support to get to Salem, and some of the competitions that they go to, support them in making sure they have hotel and food, just really supporting them to excel and represent the North Curry County. So just so you know that conversation did come up, and did we decide on who to speak with on that? Or we just want to make sure that we're offering the same up north. What they might want down in South County might not be what they need in North, and so just paying attention and listening. That's whatever we can do to support the kids with the needs they have in North County.
What Mike said, if I may, Mr. Chair, real quickly, football's been a huge tradition in my family. I have one that played Division I as a linebacker, and my oldest son is coaching with the Indianapolis Colts right now. Third son thinks he should be coaching. So to have these guys invest their time, football is a great American tradition. I just want to give a little shout out for Kevin Swift on our golf tourney. No anti-soccer bias whatsoever. However, he made a point to me that I hadn't thought about for years and years that is so good. What do chubby kids do? How do you connect with them? They're not soccer players. And you get them in a football program and you get them around men that care and can mentor them and see what they're up against. The examples you set with a mother that had the heart and the courage to call you say, this is my concern. So I don't want to push football any more than any other sport because I have to be on guard not to show that preference. But there are some aspects of that are so good for our youth. And now we've even got girls playing.
Yes.
I mean, that is the coolest thing in the world.
Yes.
And again, it's that tradition, and hopefully it can be in conjunction with soccer. And I just, thanks for giving me that time. I know it's lunchtime.
problem.
but
Mike,
I just want to clarify, this isn't a school thing, okay? This is
We
a
understand.
summer program. This is off-school type thing, and we do it year-round to work with these kids, especially in the summer as well, so they have something to do rather
Gotcha.
than going out and making the wrong choices.
So Mike, I have a question for you, Mike. It doesn't scare you if we proceed and give you this money, the Sam's number and all that stuff, you're not worried about?
I'm not.
Okay, so.
Not a majority,
okay.
I'm never scared. So.
All right. But I mean, there's paperwork, and that's, unlike the fire departments who don't like it, there is going to be some.
That is
Okay.
completely fine. So.
All right.
To make a motion.
And the blessing in that is that we're not giving the money directly to the school so that the school has to report that to the state and compromise revenues that they may receive from the state. It's allocated to the association, and so they can kind of manage that for that program.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yes.
I move that we approve this ARP funding for the youth program of Curry County for, what was the amount? I'm sorry.
15,125.
Yes.
Thank you.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
You guys are heroes, you know that, right?
So Anthony, will you be available to come back after lunch and on E? Okay. We'll break for lunch. We'll be back at 1:15.
Transportation, infrastructure, healthcare.
Confuse me more.
No, just to
There you
to
go.
keep us on track. Good morning and welcome, or afternoon, and welcome back from lunch. We are going to continue on with discussion action item 7E, Veterans Southwest Oregon Memorials Tour of Honor, Economic Development Assistant Miranda Plaguey and Commissioner Boyce.
Let's see here.
7E.
We need our screen there, Mr. Jerome, please.
Oh.
It turned itself off.
I hear a door opening.
Got the password?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't see an icon, but Summer was going to come in and put this up.
On what? Everything that you gave me yesterday.
Yeah, nobody gave it to me.
Okay.
You didn't give it to me yesterday, did I?
Okay, let's see what we got here, guys. No, it's not on here. So can we skip and I will email Summer, Economic Development Coordinator Madison, and so she can get that on.
Okay.
So let me
Well, let's just move then into Commissioner comments.
I have one comment. I'd like to say thank you to everyone for all the prayers and kind thoughts while I've been sick, and I just want to say how much they're appreciated. And I also want to say thank you to Jenny Williams, board of Curry General, the nursing staff, and the surgical team that worked on me. Lots said about what's going on in Curry County with our hospital and emergency rooms. Folks, I want to say one thing, money well spent. I've been to a lot of hospitals in my life due to my health issues, and money well spent. First class, clean, neat, very efficient, good doctors. Very proud to say that Curry General is here in our county. That's all I have.
All right. Commissioner Boyce.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Patch, for that recognition of the hospital.
Yeah.
I agree. It makes us all proud, and I'm glad you're here today and been upright and contributing. Thank you. So, yeah, I'm next.
Yes, sir.
You said.
Microphone.
Appreciate your comments on the hospital. I don't know if that didn't get caught there, but glad you're here and contributing. And the Curry General Hospital, Curry Health Network is a good source of our pride for this community, and it's also helped bring the communities together. Very proud to say. I'm getting my notes here, Mr. Oh, phooey. Where'd it go? Well, I'm looking. Wait, it just absolutely disappeared. Here we go. Okay. I had quite an honor, and I think I can represent the county well. Was asked to serve on the Coquille Tribe Community Fund Board of Trustees. That's a 2-year appointment, and I may have to recuse myself on a few Curry County potential awards, but I think I can contribute, and I've got a press release. It just highlights the work that the tribe has done. They're tremendous consensus builders. The work that they've helped us with on the salmon and trout recovery programs. The 3 times I've been to Lost Creek in the last 6 months, they were there every time. They just have a lot of heart, and so they asked me to serve on this board of trustees, and I'm very honored, and I'll be giving you periodic reports from time to time, board. Let's see, we had quite an honor in Gold Beach, and I don't know if well, there it is. Summer, it's on there. We'll come back to this, Mr. Chair. I apologize. She did get that done. Oh!
We were waiting on you, but we went to commissioner comments, so. Miranda.
Tour.
Oh, Miranda had to leave.
Okay.
Well, you don't need to come in, but you can.
Is Anthony Vowdy around?
Yeah, he's just parking down.
So is this on the screen, Mr. Jerome? Miranda did thank you. Miranda did a lot of great work here. I've talked to the board a couple of times in the past couple of years with this concept, with the tremendous veterans memorials we have in Southwest Oregon. And I did a little bit of a brochure, and I thought it was good, but this is way better, and a lot of heart and soul went into this, and the design, the graphics, and basically it's a loop tour where you can start any one of the 5 counties. Let's just say, for example, you start in, and by the way, this is inventoried a lot of the smaller veterans memorials, but the 6 larger ones in Southwest Oregon. If you want to start again, say example, in Eagle Point, you go to the Central Point Veterans Memorial, and that's just an incredibly special place. The 3 years I was going back and forth to Medford, to Valley, I made sure my grandkids in those years, they're all grown now, but they spent a lot of time there with me, and I was able to connect with them and tell them the importance of that. And then if you go also in Jackson County out to the Eagle Point Cemetery, it'll take your breath away. And that's this picture right here, bottom left. Then you get back in on I-5 and go north to the Roseburg area, and you see the VFW Hall of Fame, and then hit Highway 38. That, by the way, that's equally special. The Douglas County has a tremendous veterans presence. And by the way, we have lost our executive director at the Roseburg VA facility, and I'm working with some vets here we've had 3 different directors at the Vets Center in the last 5 years. And we want to find somebody that can stay and wants to live in Oregon, and it's just such an important part of our whole veteran services. So anyway, get back on Highway 30, so I'll give you a report on that more down the road, but get back on Highway 38 to Reedsport, and then down to the David Dewitt Veterans Memorial, and absolutely first class. It's right on 101 at the very north tip of the Coos Bay, on the north side of North Bend. Keep going. I didn't mean to skip Merlin, or did I? Yeah, the one at Merlin is very, very special. It's just a little bit out of your way off I-5 once you leave the Eagle Point Cemetery. And then, so anyway, you go over to David Dewitt at North Bend and down to Gold Beach. And we're, of course, very proud of our Veterans Memorial here. A lot of hard work with the City of Gold Beach Veterans Organization. Sam Vitale, former Curry County Commissioner Susan Brown had a lot of effort and work into that. And it's just, and there's also a very nice one abandoned, but it's not on this particular brochure. We hope this will evolve to include that. We're thinking of motorcycle gangs. We're thinking of families, schools.
I didn't mean to laugh.
I didn't mean to say gangs,
Yeah.
right? That was not the right word. Motorcycle groups.
Groups.
Most of the
Angels
gangs are
getting
veteran
involved.
oriented.
Right.
So
Yep.
And the outlaws will be there.
yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. I
That's
caught
good.
your laugh, and
That's all
I
right.
immediately realized what I had said. But yeah, in my Father's Day sheriff here, the gangs were the Hell's Angels and
Yeah.
stuff. So I follow you, but we're slowly turning them too. So I'm going to go to the second page here. Oh, what do I have to do? Oh, I know. We've got to go to a different icon. No worries. And so there's the 6 listed. And again, it can be in any order. Basically, what we're looking for, commissioners, is $1,000 to start this on the brochures. Again, our staff did a super job on this and kind of took it to heart. And, as it says in the agenda routing slip, we're looking to eventually, sooner the better, challenge other counties to contribute to this and then go into a different marketing beyond just brochures program. I didn't have a specific fund that I'm requesting this come from, so I'm looking for direction there or hopeful interest. Likely recommendations. So we start with the brochure. We think that'll give us the best credibility with the other counties and at least start the process. And, eventually we will be marketing. So we're just asking for $1,000 now. And if anybody wants this, it will be on our county website, right? If we follow through.
Questions?
Mr. JJ?
Summer, did you want to speak to this, or in lieu of Miranda not being here?
Sure. So I'm not sure exactly what Miranda had lined out to discuss, but I do know that she's excited, as one of the deliverables on the destination management plan is to build out those tours. And I think, even though this is kind of just a draft and a starting point, I think it will become one of the many tours available electronically through the app. So we're having to do less printing of materials. The other thing that we discussed too is printing some of these and getting them going locally and kind of glean some feedback, and from there make some changes that that folks give us. So that we can just refine it and make it better and better. And I think also too, Miranda was talking about putting a QR code in there, so it links directly to Travel Curry, so they get in that habit of going there for the tours. Outside of that, Miranda really enjoyed putting this together, and we're happy to print some out and get them going locally. Also, there was mention on the ARS about reaching out to the other counties and looking for funding. What I thought we might be able to do is put that out to them and get some feedback, and then maybe they want to add something like their own phone number to that or something, or highlight their stop a little bit. I don't know, but they may opt to take on printing some of those, which would be pretty cool. So, but I do know that she wants to make it available digitally, so she's excited about that.
And Economic Development and Tourism Promotion is going to fund it?
Well, we've funded it so far. It all just depends on what you all decide. But I mean, we're willing to put the work in. Yeah, I mean, whatever you guys decide and we have time to do. Certainly after today, we'll have more time than we typically do. So.
At the end of the first morning session before lunch, I asked Anthony Vowdy, VSO Vowdy, if he could be here this afternoon, because I kind of like to get his input Veteran Services Officer, Tour of Honor, your veteran memorials, and he's not here, so yeah.
Yeah, I actually talked to him in the very beginning, and almost 4 years ago, and also I don't want to leave out David Brock-Smith, state representative. He was. This is a mutual idea we had, and so I guess I want to apologize a little bit that it's taken 3 years to get this moving forward, but just a lot of busy details, and we seem to have the the foundation to do it now.
I would be interested to see what State Rep David Brock-Smith has to say about this. Maybe we put it out there and get some feedback before final print. When I had shared with Anthony Vowdy that this was going to be on the agenda, he said that's cool, but there's no greater honor than the decisions that you made this morning with regards to the Veterans Youth Program. So he did mention that, but he was impressed with the work. Yeah.
So I don't dare ask for ARP funds, do I? That could start a...
Yeah, I don't think so. I think this is a tourism promotion thing.
Sure. Yeah, we when you're looking at the demographic that this would serve, it's understandable that you'd want some printouts. And so what Miranda will likely do is curtail this in, I don't know what program she'll use, but Publisher, and get that lined out so that it's easy to reproduce on websites. We're certainly open to getting some print. I don't know that it'll cost $1,000. That's my only concern.
Yeah.
Might cost more, might cost less. I don't know that we'll have to track that with such detail, but we're in support of that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, we haven't done anything for veterans out of ARP that I'm aware of yet. So $1,000 would be like 1/10 of 1%. Here's what I would say. Granting assistance, ARP eligible uses, paragraph 11, granting assistance to impacted industries, including tourism, travel, and hospitality that faced or inordinate impacts due to the pandemic. So making that qualification, I'm not the least bit nervous if we want to go through ARP funds.
I'd rather do it through economic development.
Yeah, I think it just fits right in because you've been working with economic development on it and tourism.
QR code that ties right into travel Curry.
Yep.
Is that in your budget available, may I ask? You know what, we might be able to get help from ODVA, Veterans Association of Oregon. We might be able to get, we haven't asked VSO Valley for funding. Actually, when he and I talked 3 years ago, we were going to join forces and get a hold of the other VSOs counties. So
okay.
Yeah, it's.
Well, I think a majority of the investment has already been made, and so from here on out, it's just about promotions, and getting the resource out there and available. But until that's secured, we are more than happy to print some of these out and get them in the hands of the locals and wherever you see fit.
Okay. So is that do you want a motion for the funds to come out of economic development?
I think a head nod is good.
Yeah.
We're good.
I hate to spend your money, but it sounds like we're okay. Thank you, board.
You bet. So you're up still with commissioner updates.
How long is the executive session going to take? I'm just running out of gas.
Okay.
Next year's Veterans Free Rogue River Trip, July 30th and August 6th. Those are both Sundays. The trip we had on, what was it, August 1st or 6th? Went really well. We got started a little bit late, and that was my fault, but we just had a terrific group. And so, and then the next is the fire update. I think I pretty well handled that. Just really want to give a shout out to Emergency Management Director Ward. Again, she worked all weekend. She's getting information as fast as I'm getting it, and I'm really impressed with that and appreciative of that. And we're just watching a Rum Creek fire. We're watching our neighbors to the south, which I referenced earlier today. And so it's we're just at a very, very high level of risk right now, and we just need the local folks to be tremendously on their toes. Again, as I mentioned earlier today, I think we're headed for a very dry fall, and that means fire season could be extended possibly into late November or even later. So the slightest bit of improper lawn mowing, don't even run any machinery around grass after 10 o'clock, and then that may be restricted completely by the Oregon Department of Forestry at some point here. Just can't stress enough. We can enjoy the rest of summer and move forward, but just to be cautious and tell your neighbors, anything combustible, be on guard. The other thing, we had this famous weather machine that was recommended for both Curry County and Klamath, and it was hard to take it seriously at first, but we did a lot of work on this. I want to give a shout out to Lee Riddle and his sweetheart Joan. They did tremendous research, and it was just really hard not to look at this weather machine to produce more rain or take less rain or whatever. And the Oregon Department of Agriculture ultimately said, no, we will not give permits for the two counties on this. So I don't want to spend any more time on it, but these are the kind of projects that make your head spin, that come from outside the county, that I just really appreciate the citizens that took the time and said, this makes no sense. We cannot support this. One more, let's see. I learned about golf. And I just want to give a shout out, as Commissioner Pash did for Curry General. We had a little bit of a part in raising some important funds, and we had a blast with Kevin Swift, arguably one of the best football coaches Southern Oregon has ever had, and we had him in Gold Beach for almost 18 seasons, a couple of state titles. Anyway, he's a good golfer. He didn't start that good, but boy, he finished strong, and I was impressed with, I got to say, Commissioner Herzog. You're not too shabby by a long shot, and but the surprise was Council Pope, who's quite experienced, and he was the stabilizing force of our team of four, and you know where that leaves me. But we just had a great time, and I think they raised almost $20,000. The reason I had these pictures in here, and they're pictures of the front cover, but our Economic Development Department has worked very hard to put ads in for Cedar Bend and Gold Beach, and for the Salmon Run in Brookings, and we have two golf courses in Curry County, and they deserve to be promoted. Sorry about the quality of color there, but for you golfers out there that might be listening, friends that golf outside of Curry County, invite them. These are just special places, and I hadn't picked up a set of golf clubs in 30 years, and it showed. But again, very worthy cause. And then I went down 2 weeks later and golfed in the tournament for a Caitlin cause. Chief Wallace and his wife, for their daughter that they lost when she was 17 to cancer, and they raised almost $17,000 at that tournament. So it was just a lot of fun. And Council Pope was right there to make sure that Commissioner Herzog and I didn't remotely, even one sentence, discuss county business. He was pretty busy trying to coach me. This is Miranda Plaguey, who set up a booth there and was there pretty much all day. She volunteered a Saturday. I can't remember who this is.
Yeah.
Huh? Is it Anthony?
Yeah, it's me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Anthony. We lost weight. Good job. And anyway, this is just the map of the course. It's a beautiful 18-hole course, and I just want to give a shout out to the sponsors. My gosh, the food at the end of barbecue is just incredible. Commissioner Herzog ate way too much, but it was fun to watch. And so anyway, that's it, guys. That's all I've got. Just really proud of our staff here and all the work that they're doing. And you know, they went to a lot of effort to get us to that tournament, and I hope we can do it every year. And again, highlighting our golf courses and the special people that run them. Thank you.
All right. I am next for commissioner updates. I have one thing to say. A week and a half ago, I said some stuff that I regret, and it was conduct unbecoming a county commissioner, and I'm not proud of that at all. So, and I will work on that never happening again. Next up is executive session, and We will, do I need to read this, Anthony?
Knock it down.
You can read it.
I'll do it.
Okay.
Executive
There you
session
go.
per ORS 1926602A to consider the employment of a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent. B is 1926662D to conduct deliberations with persons designated by a governing body, carry out labor negotiations, and C is 1926662H to consult with counsel concerning legal rights, duties of public body, and regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed.
All right.
So we're in recess on this one?
Well, yep, until, who needs to be here, Anthony?
Melvin was going to address us real quick, and Julie.
So do you want me to stay?
We just convened adjourned our workshop, and we're back in regular session. We've had commissioner updates, we've had executive session, and directed the staff to work as appropriated, and now we've got a couple higher orders, and so I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, are we going to go back into executive session after?
Well, we can, but
I think we might have another item.
okay.
So yes, I'll make a motion to approve the higher orders, Mr. Chair.
Higher orders 10A and B?
Yes.
Can we do that, Anthony, just in one fell swoop? Okay, I'll second that. All in favor say yes?
Yes.
I say yes, so motion carries 2-0. You said you needed a few minutes on this, in this open session?
Yes, please.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair and Curry citizens, on the July 20th meeting, when we were talking about the library and different books that were made available to kids, or at least were not hid behind the counter, this is based on an apology to the citizens. I made a comment that when somebody wants to pretend like he's a man, a man pretends like he's a woman, we're supposed to pretend with him. And the last thing I want to do is my family, we're noted for caring very much about people and loving people. It's the 11th commandment. Christ said, love your neighbors as you love yourself. And so I never meant to hurt anyone's feelings at all. Having said that, and my apology is very sincere, I see things happening in our culture that give me great cause for concern. We had a prayer this morning and I commend you on that direction, Commissioner Herzog. And my feeling on that is, and what I've challenged my own kids with, have you ever seen, since time began in a 5,000-year history, have you ever seen a society, a godless society, that produced anything sooner or later except poverty? And that's why I'm very strong in my faith, and that's why when it comes to certain social issues, I speak out. And I don't want our kids confused. I don't want our kids told that they can have a very serious operation, removing body parts, and it can be reversible. I think it's the wrong message. I think it's borderline monstrous. And I don't know very many people in Curry County that promote that, but it is being promoted throughout our country, and it's very rare throughout other societies on this planet. And so in confusing our kids, and they all want to experiment. All kids want to experiment. And so I'm just going to be watching these issues very close. And people say, well, that's not really a county issue. Well, as a human being, and you see people hurt, you see choices made that's a moral breakdown, I believe you got to speak out, and I intend to do that. I'm not going to be silent. So I didn't mean to hurt anyone's feelings, but I'm going to, as I mentioned, I'm going to stay with this issue, and I don't want doctors getting rich on those kind of operations, or I don't want doctors forced to make those kind of operations, sex change operations, when they don't want to, when it goes against their personal and religious beliefs. Right now Portland has a new school that has genderless bathrooms. Any age, anything goes. And I have 9 granddaughters, and I have 3 grandsons, and the list is big. And I'm shocked by that. I can't accept it. my comment about a man pretending to be a woman was not anything to do with sexual orientation. I've had and have many gay friends, lesbian friends, and it's just never been an issue. I have a religious belief that that enters into my conduct, and further, I don't want to be part of a godless society. I don't want to be part of a godless government. So thank you again for your prayer today. I hope no one was offended, but even if they are, they have no legal standing. The United States Supreme Court ruled that they can't. It won't do them any good to litigate because it's part of our First Amendment, and some people want to bring God back into our culture, and that's what's made us different. It's part of our heritage. It's foundational. It's who we are as a country, and a lot of the people I run with, they do not want to lose that, and they're not going to give it up. And so I hope people will be tolerant of my beliefs, and I will be tolerant of theirs. But again, I apologize if I hurt anyone with that comment. But I'm going to be praying for them, anybody that has to deal with that, and what the future would be for them. So thank you on that. And then the second thing, Mr. Chair, the exchange today, I mean, this is painful, but regarding Treasurer Barnes, he is constantly bullying, provoking, harassing, attacking, and he's very dishonest. And so I can prove that. I've waited 4 years. I had him in my office just a few days ago, and thinking maybe there's a way to have civility, because I've never responded or retaliated with him. I've had some reactions when I've seen some things or heard some things said, the horrible social media posts. I've had some reactions that I'm not proud of because I don't want to be down in that gutter. But this has got to stop. And so after he's in my office, 2 or 3 days later, I get another nasty email. And so, I just don't see any way that we can work with him. And I'm sorry, I think you were provoked in the hallway. I could be wrong about that. But I've seen 4 years nonstop. And the amount of money that this costs this county, it's easy to follow. And I've asked for an investigation. I've asked people to debate me. Let the people decide where the truth is with fact checkers. And this continually tearing down has got to stop. So, like I say, it's painful to have to go and comment on all that, but I've been here long enough to know where the problem is, and it's not with the commissioners, or at least it's not with you and me. So that's all I've got to say on that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. All I have to say to that is there's no excuse for bad manners, and we're going to adjourn. Can we adjourn, or we're going to go into executive session and then come back and adjourn? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go into executive session for a short minute and then be back and adjourn this meeting.
So move, Mr. Chair.
So you can, there you go. It's shut down.
There's a change.
Welcome back. We are going to look for a motion to adjourn this meeting on September 7th at 15:47.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Everybody in favor, stand up and say goodbye.
Done. Good day. Good day.
Thanks, Jerome. How'd that fire get started at Historic?
They thought somebody going by had a chain drag.